Welcome to our June 25th, 2018 board meeting. We're going to start, as we do, with our public hearing. So as we settle in, my name's Rick Cruz. I'm chair of the Public Charter School Board. I'm joined this evening by my board, Don Soifer on my right, Sabra Beretta, our vice chair. To my left here, Naomi Shelton, as opposed to Naomi DeVoe, who will also introduce at some point this evening, and Scott Pearson, our executive director. We have two board members joining by phone this evening. They will appear like voices from above, Steve Bumbaugh and Darren Woodruff. My gosh. And one board member, Ricardo Ganjam, cannot join us this evening in person or by phone, but I have her proxy votes. So before we begin with the public hearing, are there any public officials in attendance that wish to be recognized or make any remarks? Yes, sir. Would you like to come up to the witness? Thank you, sir. Please introduce yourself and your affiliation.
Push the button. Good evening, everyone. I'm Commissioner Eben A. Allen, ANC 7E Chair. Yes, it's brought to my knowledge that the Statesman Academy Public Charter School was trying to move into the Rocket Ship Public Charter School, and we wasn't notified as a commission about this taking place. And so I believe we received 30-day notice about this, and that didn't take place or transpire. And so we're a little disturbed and frustrated by these actions.
And sir, you were not contacted in 30 days, or not contacted at all?
Not contacted at all.
Okay. Okay. Well, we have the group from Statesman, as you know, this evening. In just a little bit, they'll be up to share what their plans are for a public hearing. So we'll have the opportunity for them to address some of your concerns.
May I also add that the Statesman Academy, they wanted to speak at our last ANC public meeting, but there's no transparency between this group and my ANC commission. And so I wasn't notified, even by them, about these actions taking place. Because my last knowledge is that they were trying to get the Cesar Chavez campus. And so those representatives never talked to me or talked to my fellow commissioners about this new agenda at hand. Okay. So I just want to notify the public about that.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, so we're going to create an opportunity now for additional public comment. I'm going to take each of the hearing items in turn. So if there's anyone here to make a public comment on any of the three charter amendments to begin with. So the three charter amendments open for hearing this evening are E.W. Stokes, one with regard to Friendship PCS, and the other with regard to Rocket Ship PCS. So if there's anyone in the audience who'd like to make a public comment on either of those or any of those three charter amendments, please join us at the dais. Going once. Oh, good. Sorry. Correct. Correct. Okay.
Good evening. This one on? Yeah. Good evening. My name is Lionel Humphrey. I'm the chairman of ANC 7B and also commissioner for 7B07. The reason why I'm here, I actually got late notice. I got a call yesterday in regards to this meeting. I was not informed about this meeting, and people in my commission was not informed. The reason why I'm speaking about this is because I understand that I think with the Statesman, yes, they're trying to open up or trying to go into the school rocket ship. Now, this is my problem, and this is the problem that we have in the community, is that, and it's just not the public charter school board, it's not, it's basic district government in general. They feel that they come to us at the last moment and expect us to just go ahead and basically bend over and take whatever it is that you all are offering. The problem is that we need to make sure that we're getting notice. We're not receiving proper notice. As an ANC chairman, I didn't receive proper notice. And I drive by the rocket ship and I'm looking, and this school is literally in these people's backyards. Literally in these people's backyards. I can look into Ms. Johnny Scott Wright's bedroom. And I don't understand how it is that a person can actually feel that this was okay when they designed it. To me, it seems like there are checklists for everything that you all do. There's checklists. And it seems like when it comes to the community, we're the last ones to be checked. When it comes to the ANC commissioner, we're the last one. And so I have a serious problem. I know my colleagues as well have a problem with it. But I would like to know, I would like more notice when it comes to these type of things. And I would like for you all to take in consideration the people in the neighborhood before you start making decisions. Don't come to us at the 23rd hour and expect us to say, yeah, okay, well, we'll deal with it. No. I don't hear my colleagues over in Ward 3 talking about this. I don't hear them in other wards talking about this. It doesn't happen in Ward 4. It only happens Ward 7 and 8. But I represent 7 as far as the commission. But I'm telling you, east of the river, east down, I don't care what name you want to put it, you all, I'm telling you, I don't understand. And so what I would like to know, I'm going to put it on record. This is my cell phone number. This is my card, my email address, cell phone number 202-276-3307. 202-276-3307. You have my contact information. I would like for you to be more astute and definitely listen to these people. We're sick and tired of it, and we're going to stand up. We're not taking this anymore. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, let's get one more. So I believe there. Okay. I believe there was additional public comment with regard to statesmen. So.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Shanklin Brown. I am the president of the Benning Ridge Civic Association. And just so that you all know, I gave my commissioners within Ward 7 an opportunity to speak ahead. They are elected officials. But just so you know, we work in unison together. There are 29 communities in Ward 7. And all of the commissions that are represented and civic associations, we meet on a monthly basis with our council member. So we have a camaraderie. We pretty much know what's going on throughout the community. And as the two previous commissioners have said, it's upsetting to know that things are put into the community that they have no knowledge of, and they're our first line of communication. We depend on them. When I say we, I mean every resident in Ward 7 depends on the commissioners for information. Now, the way Rocket Ship went down, absolutely terrible. First of all, the community that it's in, it's a senior community now. There are no children around there. And you have people who have paid their dues through working, paying for homes, have beautiful homes around there. And then to snub them out as far as their view, the privacy of backyard experiences, that's what has happened. And you got one resident sitting here. Raise your hand, Johnny. That school is literally in her backyard. And if any of you have driven down Mass Avenue, you will see where that school wraps around the big water tower that's there. And she can actually see into the school from her bedroom. Now, if she can see into the school from her bedroom, then that means the kids, teachers, anybody can look over into her bedroom. That's no privacy. And how many years have you been there? 43. And after 43 years, she's faced, I'm going to ignore that. After 43 years, she has this monstrosity of a school or building sitting in her backyard. And there's no need for her to think about moving anywhere because now her property value has gone down. It'll be hard to sell her property if she decides to move because of this structure that's there. So all we're asking is that consideration be made, proper protocol be followed, and that these commissioners are notified when things are happening. My husband was a commissioner. He's deceased. And I know for a fact, anytime development was going on, he and single member 7E01 was always notified. The developers, anybody that was involved, always notified him, and he met with them, and then the issue was taken to the entire commission for 7E. But as they've stated, we're just a little tired of this, and we just think that you all think that it's okay to just move in, do what you want to do without any consideration. But as Mr. Humphrey said, we have really formed a line of defense now. It's too much. It's just too much. And please keep in mind, we are considered part of the leadership council that was formed by our council member who meets with us once a month. And we know who each one of the commissioners are, civic association presidents. We all know one another. And the information is always available to us. But these are the kinds of things that upset us. So we just ask that you show us a little respect and do better when it's time for things to happen within our community.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is this the one I'm using?
Yes, it's on.
My name is Johnny Scott Rice. I am the former vice chair of ANC 7E. I am also the president of the Massachusetts Southern Avenue Barker Lane Block Club. I'm going to give you people a little history because obviously you don't know the history or you wouldn't be doing this. We bought our property in 1974. We built our homes in 1975. All of our children are grown and gone. Grandchildren, you don't even let them stay overnight. We want our peace and quiet. I am 77 years old. I don't intend to go anywhere. You built that building next door to us. Rocket Ship lied to us. Reverend Walker lied to us. When we knew anything, they had all their permits. I saw the film from this board holding a hearing, said that we agreed to this. We never got notice of your hearing for Rocket Ship. We came up to the meeting at the charter board, and we were treated like shit. We were disrespected, and it just hurt so bad. I am against what you're about to do, and I will fight with every breath I have. Those kids can walk on that second floor of that building and look directly down in our bedrooms. They came there and cut down 25 trees on private property. They came and used our easement, which is private property. And we sat there and watched them cut our trees down, take our fence down. Told them, warned them, this is a floodplain up here. We had put pipes in the ground where they built to keep the water from going over on our property. Now the water is sitting on our property again. Nobody seems to care about people east of the river. You would never have the nerve or the balls to do this in Ward 3. You would never have that kind of nerve. But you have that kind of nerve to come east of the river. We're not going anywhere, and you're not coming in. Thank you for the opportunity to let you know you're in for a fight. This whole ward is against you. You may not see them all here tonight, but they'll be here when we need them the most.
Hello, my name is Adrienne Doyle. I'm one of the 5 townhomes. That's where the sidewalk is. I bitched, and complained about the trash dumpsters behind my homes. Jock Patterson, being defiant, moved the trash dumpsters next door to the house that I live in. You're basically defeating the purpose. You have staff members and you have parents dropping their kids off. My bedroom is out in the back of the parking lot. I don't have no peace, none. So you have staff members coming in there with their music loud. You have the families, they're dropping off the kids with their music loud. There's no peace. And you all say, Jock Patterson was on Fox 5, Miss Johnny and I, and he said that they have a matter of right. What matter of right of homeowners have? There is no charter school in Ward 3, none. Everything is in Ward 7 and Ward 8. That's almost 30 charter schools. None in Ward 3. And none of y'all even had the experience to deal with the bull crap that we was dealing with. Dirt, we incurred termites, mice. None of that affected you all. All of y'all wanted to make sure that that school was there. And you didn't have enough students there anyway. And half of the students was there was not even DC residents. I'm at to this point now, from what I've gathered from the other 4 homeowners, to take those tax numbers and send it to Carl Racine. So to me, that was just a waste. That building is a monstrosity. I don't have no peace whatsoever. I can't even go out and enjoy a family gathering because all I have is sun. I had shade there. That's all I have now is just sun and a big old parking lot. And since they built that school, every day since the school has been built, there's always someone there doing some type of work. It doesn't matter whether it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday, they're not supposed to work. That's the DCRA law. That I do know, because I can call the inspector on that. This is getting ridiculous how they just feel as they can just put a charter school right in the middle of a senior citizen environment, and also me, myself, as a young person, almost a senior. This right here has to stop. And like Miss Johnny said, we're going to fight. And I'm one of the fighters. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name's Laura Richards, and I live a few blocks away from the school. And I objected very strongly to the rocket ship prep, and I object just as strongly to the proposed co-location of Statesman in the rocket ship building. This is the 4th location at which Statesman has attempted to locate its program. Less than 1 month ago, it was appearing before Parkside neighbors attempting to market itself to them. For a number of reasons, Statesman failed to move forward at its prior proposed locations. This suggests serious deficiencies in its educational program, its business model, or both. My neighbors and I testified at length that there was no need for the 500 to 700 student facility that Rocket Ship Prep wanted to open, and which this school board, approved. We told you that the demand was not there. You ignored us. We were right. Now Rocket Ships, which serves fewer than 100 students, many of whom are not DC residents, is attempting to fill its facility by trolling for other charter school business. The neighborhood should not be asked to bear the burden of Rocket Ship Prep's poor preparation and planning. We know nothing of Statesman. It has not been before the community, primarily because it didn't plan to come here until the last 2 or 3 weeks. The scheduled vote on June 29th is laughably premature. There has been inadequate notice, legally inadequate notice, and no consultation with the community. We think as a minimum show of good faith, we would ask the school board to announce that it will defer its June 29th vote until there has been at least the legally required notice and the ability for Statesman to come before the community. But we will tell you that we are entirely predisposed to not want this, given the very, very acrimonious relationship with Rocket Ship Prep and the really rather bad outcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. So my name is Ebony Rose Thompson, and I'm the chair of the Ward 7 Education Council. I did submit written statement earlier today, so I'm not going to read the entire written statement, but I'm actually going to add a little more commentary to explain how we came to chime in on this particular proposed co-location. So we've actually been following the authorization of North Star and now Statesman's charter since this time last year. I've met with many of the founding board members. I see some of them in the audience. I see Sean and I see others. And I have encouraged them at every turn to do their best to not just reach out to families that potentially could locate or could potentially enroll their students at this school, which I think they've done a wonderful job of. They have not done the same level of work around engaging communities. And that's just the truth. I have no qualms about saying that because I've said that to them and I've said that to others. I will say whether it was ANC 7D when they were trying to locate at Cesar Chavez Parkside or Kenilworth Building, it took them months to meet with the ANC. I know I had a meeting, and my meeting is reflected in the memos they've sent to you all. I know I personally had a meeting with them when they made the time, they came to my job. I appreciated that. And I think it is my responsibility as the chair of the Education Council to give context and to say this is who else you should talk to, not for me to make a decision by myself. It took them not until maybe last month to get to Parkside's Civic Association meeting, to get to 7D's ANC meeting, to present in front of that community. As someone who used to be an ANC commissioner, I was 6 years, 3 terms on ANC 7F. I absolutely appreciate and respect what it means to be a franchised community, what it means to have a say and how much we know our communities better than anyone coming in. I don't think the question is whether Statesman is well-intentioned. I don't think the question is whether these families deserve whatever they're looking for. I think the question is also how do you weigh that against communities being able to come in and say, this is what we want to see, it's our community, and how does this impact us? There is no way that Statesman knows what the impact of them locating at Rocket Ship will be because they don't know that community. And so it is insufficient for their memo to stand by itself and say this is what the impact will be. I would say the Fort Davis community, I applaud all the energy they put into being vocal and being visible around the rocket ship location. And I don't know the woman's name who testified before me, but she's absolutely right. They did go on record reflecting the congestion. They did go on record reflecting the demand or lack thereof. And they did go on record explaining why that was not the ideal process and how they were, quite frankly, disenfranchised and disrespected the way Rocket Ship came into that community. And I would hate for Statesman or North Star, which I believe have been well-intentioned, to become part of that mix. So we've submitted commentary pretty much asking for, at the very least, the Public Charter School Board to postpone their vote to give the ANCs, both ANC 7E, which the school immediately sits in, and ANC 7B, time to inform their residents, take an actual vote, and weigh in on the record at the very least. Thank you.
Thank you, Ebony Rose.
Hello, my name is Mary Brown, and today I'm here pretty much from my experience of over 22 years with Life Pieces to Masterpieces, arts-based mentoring program for Black men and boys right here in Ward 7. Lincoln Heights, Kenilworth, mostly all of Ward 7. What I want to say is that every single one of you elders that have come up here, all of you that have spoken, you speak from a very real place. And so we're in a bit of a conundrum. Why? Because 10 years ago, Sean Hardnett was invited to Life Pieces to Masterpieces. Because after 12 years of raising boys successfully, 3 to 25, and their temporal orientation, excellent. Family peer relationship, stellar. Being able to speak another language, great. Self-efficacy, there. School attendance improved because over 60% of our gentlemen 10 years ago, they weren't attending school. And so we got them to attend school, and then what did we find? That they were behind severely in reading and behind severely in math. And many of them would come in with big smiles in middle school and high school. And they would say, oh, look at my grade, A and B. And when we would go to the schools, that, the teachers would say, oh, but he's such a nice boy. He's such a good boy. And so I reached out to Brother Sean to say, please come and help me improve the academic outcomes of our gentlemen. Because the data is there for Ward 7 in terms of black men and boys, the direction that where they're going. And sad to say, I also, and I'm continuing to do some work there at DC Promise, but what we're finding is that these excellent ANCs, all of you, may not possibly be representing the fullness of the community because I'm so sorry, because there are members of the community who don't go to ANC meetings or civic association meetings, and some of those families are the ones that could benefit from the school the most. I understand what you're saying in terms of this rocket ship piece. I mean, that sounds like something that definitely, we have to look into, but my God, let statesmen live. Because the pedagogy that yielded stellar outcomes for black men and boys for 22 years, all of our gentlemen not only graduating high school, a high percentage going on to college or training, the outcomes that we have are stellar. And so we're just asking for an opportunity to live. And if given that opportunity, in time, you'll see how utterly magnificent the black boys and brown boys of Ward 7 are. You do have an argument here, undeniable. But all we want is a home to demonstrate stellar outcomes. And you are correct. Just like any mother, just like any father, we were searching through the community in order to find that home. And that's basically everything. I do have some members of our community that are really for statesmen, and there you have it. And I thank you for the opportunity, and I thank every single one of you for your testimony. Thank you very much, with respect and love.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment? Oh, yes, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Rett. I'm a resident, father, and a parent, school-aged child in Ward 7. I wanted to respectfully rebut what you just heard. Residents of this community do not want more charter schools. We've been very clear. It's not about individuals or personalities or theories or the scientific experiments that may or may not work. This community has not been presented with any data that confirms that the applicant has the wherewithal, capacity, or experience with delivering what they're promising, number one. Number two, I think this body had some issues back in October of 2017, if I'm correct, with not following DC open meeting laws procedures. There is a legal requirement for 30 days public commentary period for any decisions or any votes. This community has not received that 30-day requirement. This community is simply civically civilly appealing that you table this issue. Secondly, this body owes the parents who have signed up for this school, whether it's North Star or Statesman, you owe these parents a responsible act of not only tabling this, because that space is not verified or guaranteed, but releasing those families so that they have ample time and opportunity to enroll their children into other schools before the opening of school. The other thing you may not be aware of, public meetings, which we have called for from Statesman to meet with our public bodies, all of our public bodies, ANC and civic associations, are in recess beginning this month, July and August. Our ANCs will not reconvene until September. Our civic associations will not reconvene until September. So there can be no formal presentations or formal votes by our elected representatives, our civic association and our ANC members. To bring this before your body at the end of June, I think Commissioner Humphrey put it best, is extraordinarily disrespectful. And we appeal to you to show a little more respect for this community. That's all I have to say about this.
Thank you. So one last call for public comment before we go into the matters for public hearing.
Hello, my name is Latoya Grant. I am a now terminated teacher from Howard University Middle School. And I just wanted you guys to know that as a teacher, ethically, there were a lot of things that were asked of me, like changing grades, and I wasn't willing to do it. They covered up a sexual harassment complaint from a student and a teacher because Howard University had a lot of heat on them right now. They failed to tell the parent, and they had the teacher in the building for the remainder of the year, and nothing happened. And when I went to complain, they filed a harassment claim against me for defamation of character, for spreading rumors on the job. Yet, no parent was contacted, nothing happened to the teacher, and I was the one that got reprimanded. And I'm trying to figure out what you guys' protocol is, because I'm not a first-year teacher, but this is my first time teaching in an urban school. I'm a product of Montgomery County Public Schools, elementary school, middle school, high school, and I also work for them. And I've never been asked to change grades. I've never been challenged ethically, you know? There was always somebody in leadership that we could talk to that was supportive and motivated us as teachers. And they're getting rid of good, qualified teachers and replacing them with people who never taken an education course from Kelly Services, and these are the people that are teaching our kids. And you wonder why they're on third grade reading level. The people who are teaching him aren't qualified. And I'm a career changer. I went back to school to be a teacher. I gave up a career for this. So I take this serious. And I don't know what the politics is, but I did file a complaint against them, and I'm going to take this to the top. Because they did that young lady an injustice. They didn't follow up. And I'm not quite sure if they wanted her to come back and say, he touched my breast, or he did this, or he did that, for them to react. But they failed her as a student. They failed the parents, because you guys send your kids to us for me to teach them, which I care about them. I build relationships with them. But I'm noticing that the structure in the charter schools are much different. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And I'm looking for you guys to do something about it. Look into this. And if I can lose my job for doing my job, they need to lose their job for not doing theirs.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Do we have additional public comment?
Good evening. So my name is Paige Garby. I'm here tonight at the urging of Patrick Pope, the Public Charter School Board's Equity and Fidelity Specialist, to discuss an event that happened at Achievement Prep Elementary School last month. I was sexually assaulted in the school building by a guest of one of the parents. It was caught on video. I personally chose to involve the police, and an arrest was eventually made. My assailant has since been charged with 4 counts of sexual abuse. While waiting for the arrest warrant, the police told me that they could not guarantee that my assailant would not return to Achievement Prep, and there were some threats made against my life. I tried to work with Achievement Prep before returning to tighten up their security measures. As anyone who has visited the school knows, it's extremely easy to walk into the building through both side and front doors. Once inside, there are no ID checks, no visitor logs, no escorts, or any other measures to confirm the identity and purpose of those entering the building. Chantel Wright, the CEO, described my assault as unforeseeable, and she used this as an excuse for her refusal to work with me and the decision to place me on unpaid leave when I followed the advice of police and medical professionals and did not return for the remainder of the school year. While tragedies are often unforeseeable, APA has clearly chosen to not take any basic common sense measures, and their poor security does not end at their doors. In the 3 years since I have been at APA, there have been 250 instances of violent crime, including homicide, assault with dangerous weapons, arson, and numerous other crimes, all within a mere 1,500 feet of the building. Yet it is only in May of this year that Achievement Prep rolled out their first attempt at a lockdown procedure, which was described by the Chief Operating Officer himself as having a disconnect between policy and practice. APA's refusal to take any steps to prevent or lessen the impact of tragedies is unconscionable, particularly for an institution that has children trusted in its care. I've been working with the Public Charter School Board on this issue and not Chantel Wright or anyone else at Achievement Prep because, as I mentioned, speaking out to them only resulted in termination of my email and denial of pay. Achievement Prep has created a climate of fear for all staff. It is an utterly unpleasant place to work. The 1.5 rating and negative reviews on Glassdoor accurately portray the culture of the school. Teachers have had their wrists fractured, students have received concussions by substitutes, and Achievement Prep has continued to sweep these issues under the rug and operate with no accountability. In the interest of time, I will not read the comments that other staff members have sent me regarding their feelings on the matter, but in less than 1 day, a petition online received 75 signatures from former and current staff members urging APA to implement basic common sense security measures. Tonight, I urge the Public Charter School Board and the rest of the community to help us in placing pressure on Achievement Prep to end their unsafe and hostile work environment and make meaningful changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional public comment this evening? One more.
Good evening. I wanted to address a rule change made recently by the board. The DC PCSB raised the reporting threshold for third-party contracts from $25,000 to $150,000. Raising the threshold for reporting third-party contracts makes charter schools less transparent to teachers as well as taxpayers. As a teacher and DC resident, I want to know what my school is spending money on. $25,000 was a reasonable threshold to require reporting. Raising it to $150,000 may have eased the burden for schools, but it made charters significantly less transparent to the public. Especially in light of the recent Washington City paper article on the management company 10 Square, it is even more important that charters are more open and transparent to the public. I am very concerned that DC is one of the few places in this country that has charter schools, yet does not require charter schools to hold an open board meeting or require that they follow Freedom of Information Act laws. I learned through the process of forming a union at my school, Cesar Chavez Prep, that Cesar Chavez Charter is paying 10 Square nearly $140,000 a month. They have a multi-year contract that will cost taxpayers and students at my school $6 million. I could see a situation where 10 Square could use your rule change to cloak their contract from public scrutiny. Instead of a multi-year agreement worth millions, what if they partnered with my school on a monthly basis, drawing up a new contract each month worth less than $150,000 a month? Would they need to report that under the rule change? Have you considered how this rule change could be manipulated to avoid disclosure or public scrutiny? In the City Paper article, the reporter noted that they asked the PCSB for a copy of management contracts that had been reported and found that either the schools were not disclosing the contracts that the law required or that the charter board was withholding the contracts that had been disclosed. I urge the board to consider not only the convenience of the charter operators when considering rule changes, but also the impact that the changes make on public transparency of DC charters more generally. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't think we got your name for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mateo Samper, 8th grade English teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. I just wanted to correct the record in two ways. First of all, the threshold for the submission of the actual contract was raised to $100,000, not $150,000. However, it's important to note that all contracts over $25,000 must be submitted in terms of the information about the contract, who it was awarded to, who bid on the contract, when where the contract was advertised. So all of the information is submitted to the Public Charter School Board and reported publicly. The only difference is that the actual contract itself only needs to be submitted for $100,000. And in our experience, when people ask to see the actual contract, it's always for the large ones, not for the very small ones.
Thank you. Ma'am.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you and good evening for allowing me to be able to be a participant in comments, whether it's supportive or either objective. And I am recovering from major surgery. And it's just a hardship trying to make all of these meetings and still while I'm in recovery, but get to the point. Thank you. First of all, I am the ANC Commissioner for Ward 7E02, and I am Commissioner Linda, L-I-N-D-A, middle initial S, which is for Sue, and last name Green, just like the color, G-R-E-E-N. I'm also the president of the Fort Davis Civic Association, and that is located in 1400 41st Street Southeast. In addition to that, I'm on the executive board for the 6th District Metropolitan Police under Commander David Taylor, and also a member of Councilmember Vincent C. Gray's Ward 7 leadership. So you see, I have a full plate of responsibilities. First of all, I didn't receive the letter in the mail until June the 15th, 2018, bringing to my attention from the DC Public Charter School Board, which is the board that you occupy. And I want to bring to your attention that I was not happy about the letter being, one, untimely. The letter was very much untimely. The notification should have been sent out to the ANC commissioners whose single-member districts are involved or impacted. That should have been done 90 days to be in respect, consideration, to give us enough time to meet and come up with a comprehensive plan of action on how to address this situation. The community which I represent single-member district of 2,000 constituents. And in that 2,000, which is the Fort Davis community, which I represent, most of those residents have been residing in that community before I was even born. So I did my research, and I talked with some officials who are historians and belong to the Historical Preservation Board for the District of Columbia, as well as the federal. And most of the constituents that reside in the communities, they have been there since 1953. Before that, it was predominantly mixed community with people who were in the service, the military, working at the White House, and back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it was predominantly a white community, but now it has changed because of demographics. It has really changed. So now it's diverse, or you can use the word mix. But getting to the point and bringing to my attention about this public charter school that is going to occupy leased space within the Rocket Ship Public Charter School, I have issues with that. Number one, you're supposed to have 88 students enrolled. Currently, from what I'm being told, correct me if I'm incorrect, I stand to be corrected, because I'm also a paralegal, certified, and I'm a legal analyst, and I work with top flight political appointee attorneys, as well as the solicitor, the general counsel, the special counsel to cabinet agency, channeled into the White House, and I held that position for 45 years. So I've just been retired within the last 2. So I'm pretty knowledgeable on scope, very good at that, and I'm very good when it comes to doing analysis. And the analysis really should have weighed in to allow me time with the other community leaders who are not elected officials, where we could have done a survey. Right now, Rocket Ship poses a lot of challenges for the homeowners. So I don't know if you're aware of that, but get to the point. I don't think that you need to have all-boys public charter school verted into a co-ed school, because it's going to create a lot of problems. Do I have more 5 minutes, or is that it?
You can finish up your comments.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And to get to the point is because currently you have pre-K, from what I'm being told, to the 4th grade, and then with your all-boys public charter school, which is going to be the Statesman, formerly the North Star College Preparatory, that's going to start from the 4th grade for each grade each year up until it meets its challenges, which is to the 8th grade. So I really don't know how that's going to work out, because you're going to have a mixed group. One will be the regular charter school, then you have your lease space. All that should have been configured in with Jock Patterson being the regional director, that when that school was first opened up, then statistically, it should have been looked at, how are we going to get these students? Where are the students going to originate from? And I don't think that there was no cross-the-board study in terms of analysis, meaning done on database. You got to have input feedback, then you got to have people who are independent consultants to come in after they study the results to see how it's going to turn out. So that's why you're in the situation that you're in now, on how you're going to have someone to come in and occupy the lease space, so you can have the body of students that you need in order to have a full, comprehensive academic program. So that concludes my testimony. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask me, and I will give you a response. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. And have a good evening.
I think Terry's going to. All right. Any final public comment? And then we'll get to our hearing matters for this evening. Scott, do you want to just, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
I just want to give her a chance to get down first.
Thank you, Commissioner Green, for your testimony and taking the time to come in and speak. And I also want to thank the other community members who spoke today regarding the shift in Stateman's location. All of your comments and commentary is valuable to how we go about doing our work. I want to, again, as was stated in the letter and email that was sent to Commissioner Green, apologize on behalf of the DC Public Charter School Board. I'm not going to speak on behalf of statesmen. That is not my role. My role is to speak related to the work that we do at DC Public Charter School Board as a board member. And one, I want to say that the discussions that we've had internally regarding community engagement, discussion and following protocol is something that we take very seriously, something that I, as the newest board member and someone who just joined the board as of January, have continued to raise in the discussions that we have had internally. The work that I do day by day is committed to community engagement. So I want you to hear from me that this is something that I take seriously and would like to make sure that you all know that in working with Scott, Naomi, the staff of the board, and my fellow board members, that is something that I will continue to hold our feet to the fire for. I would also like to say, again, reiterating that was stated in the email and letter that was sent to you, that one, we apologize for the late notice. However, circumstances and unfortunate shifts, which the school representatives can speak to on their own, made this pivot something that was unforeseeable and something that was difficult for us to do within the timeline we need to be able to have the school be successful. I would also like for us to think about decoupling the idea of Rocket Ship and their community engagement and the work of Statesman, formerly North Star, and how they go about their work. The commentary that you all have had about schools locating in this neighborhood, specifically in a neighborhood where there are seasoned residents, They're all of value, and I would love for us to have the opportunity to walk through that, talk through that, and figure out the best way to mitigate any of the challenges that have been brought to the community because of these changes. So I would appreciate that we have the opportunity to stay within a timeline, but we also want to be able to have the school do their work effectively. So on the 12th is when the email was sent, and it is acknowledged that that was outside the time and parameters that is we're legally responsible for. But we also have to keep in mind that the shifts that the school has had to endure based on various things that are outside of their control, that we try to find the best opportunity to walk through those in the timeline that is before us now. So again, I cannot speak on behalf of the institution. I can only speak on behalf of the board and our staff and reiterate our apologies to each of you for the lack of time, but in working with an institution that is trying to service the young men in Ward 7 and Ward 8 that are of greatest need, they are working with challenges that are beyond their control as well. So I know that there will be staff that will be commenting and connecting with you all to make sure that the issues that you raised today are addressed. But again, that is something that I personally, as of January, the newest board member, have been working with our board to talk through and make sure that we are addressing in a way that is beneficial for our schools and for the communities that they serve. Thank you.
So if I can invite Terry Quinn to the dais, and we begin with bringing up the team from E.W. Stokes if they're here.
Good evening. My name is Erica Bryant, and I am the Executive Director of the L.C. Whitlow Stokes Community Freedom Public Charter School.
My name is Erica McGrady, and I am the Chair of the Board of Trustees of the L.C. Whitlow Stokes Charter School.
Good evening. My name is Abdul Kareem Ewing Boyd. I'm the Director of Special Programs of the L.C. Whitlow Stokes Community Freedom Public Charter School and the Campus Director for the upcoming East End campus.
And I'm Terry Quinn, Senior Manager of the School Quality and Accountability Team for the DC Public Charter School Board. This is a public hearing to discuss an amendment request submitted by L.C. Whitlow Stokes Public Charter School to operate its already approved second campus at a new location in Ward 7 at 5600 East Capitol Street Northeast, which is in a partially vacant facility that is also occupied by Maya Angelou Public Charter School. If approved, beginning in school year 18-19, E.W. Stokes will operate at both its existing campus in Ward 5 and the proposed new location. And the school representatives are here to answer any questions you may have.
Great, great. To start with, I just wanted to put on the record that our Vice Chair Saba Barreda is recused from this discussion. Saba. Did you all have any comments to begin with?
I'd just like to say that this is Stokes School's 20th year of operation. We have tried over the course of the 20 years to be slow and deliberate about our growth. The second campus that has been approved is in response to great interest expressed by the community in Ward 7 and 8 to bring a language immersion school east of the river. We have a tremendous amount of interest in that school. We received approximately 600 applications for 140 spaces in the school. We have worked over the course of the last 2 years with community members, ANC commissioners, civics associations, with parents and other school leaders to introduce ourselves and our school to the community and to provide opportunities for dialogue and communication about our school.
Excellent. Well, let me open it up to my fellow board members if you have any questions or comments.
Just a couple of questions. One, can you walk us through what your the safety protocol that you've put in place to make sure that there's that the parents and staff are comfortable with the location you'll be co-locating?
All right, so one of the most common questions that has come up in this process has been how we intend to deal with the fact that our focus is on elementary school students, and that we're starting with early childhood, pre-K, and kindergarten, and that we're co-locating in a building that has a high school in it. That obviously became something that was one of our major priorities. One of the first things that we did was figure out where all of the hardened doors would be, what the security protocol would be between the Maya Angelou School and the Elsie Whitlow Stokes School. There are magnetic locks that separate the schools from one another. There are entrances that are only for the high school and entrances that are only for the elementary school. There are cameras throughout the building, and our security is coordinated with the entire building. The safety of the children and of the staff and of parents is of absolute paramount importance to us. And so it's something that we've been planning for and are quite comfortable with.
And do you have this plan on record? Is there an actual physical documented outline of this plan so that if someone were to ask about it, you would have it readily available?
Yes.
Don?
If I could just follow up and talk about that a little bit more. So in terms of the layout of the school and the block that it sits on, so you're going to have one set of doors for your students for Stokes and a separate set of doors for the Maya Angelou, for the high school and also as well for the Adult Learning Center.
Yes, sir. So the school is located on in the building of the former Evans Middle School, which is right on East Capitol. The 5700 block of East Capitol, the corner of 57th and East Capitol is where the door for Maya Angelou Public Charter School is. The mid-block is where the Young Adult Learning Center is. And in between those two areas is where our front door is. There's also a rear entrance that will only be used in the mornings for drop-off from the parking lot. So number one, the entrances are all completely separate. They are monitored. All three of those doors are monitored by the same security company, and there will be people manning those doors. And then also we have completely different start times. So our students will be arriving anywhere from half an hour to an hour before Maya Angelou students begin to arrive.
And what is your start time?
We open our doors at 7:30.
Got it. And then how about dismissal?
We dismiss, our dismissal for pre-K is at 3:15. For kindergarten and above is at 3:30. Our after-school program runs until 6 o'clock.
Bear with me, I've just got to want to make sure I get my arms around it. So as far as the way the two entrances are configured, do the stairwells for each open up to all floors, or how does that work?
So the stairwells are the stairwells that we will be using only will serve the first and second floor. There are doors that enter that stairwell on the third and fourth floor where Maya Angelou is. However, those doors have a delayed opening. If you press the door, you have to wait for it to open. when it opens, an alarm goes off, and Maya Angelou has security personnel on both of those floors, at the ends of the hallways and then also in the middle of the hallways. That all pointing out to say that Maya Angelou students would not be able to get into the stairwells that lead to the Elsie Whitlow Stokes School without security being there immediately, because they are stationed there. And also, Elsie Whitlow Stokes students would not be able to get up to those floors because they won't open from the stairwell side. So that's about the stairs that we use for our 2 floors. The stairs that are being used by Maya Angelou, similarly, are hardened at the first and second floors. They only would open through a magnetic key, and the only persons with those keys would be the Maya Angelou and the Stokes security and maintenance teams.
And it sounds like the way you've described each of those arrangements would not interfere with emergency exit in the case of a fire or some other emergency?
Not at all. And
exit would not be impeded?
No. We have already started talking about coordinated emergency drills.
Okay, thank you. You started to talk about drop-off and pickup patterns?
Yes.
So actually, could I let you take it from there for your school?
So for our school, there's an entrance on, I think that's Blaine Street. I'm blanking a little bit on the names, but I think that's Blaine Street. That's on the north side of the campus block.
Yeah.
There's a mid-block entrance to the parking lot for the Evans campus. We are extending the parking lot towards the north that will allow parents to drive down into the parking lot, take a turn around the north expansion, and come close to the back entrance of the school. Drop their students off. They would walk up the back entrance, which again is only for us and will only be opened in the mornings from 7:30 till 8:30. They'll walk in that entrance and up into the shared gym. Stokes has exclusive access to the gym until 11:30 a.m. Again, it's a hardened area so that we can use that area for morning lineup, snack, things like that. Children will come in through the rear entrance if parents are dropping them off in the car, or if parents want to walk from the neighborhood or from the train station down the street, they can walk to our front entrance, which is on East Capitol, and again walk into the building and into the gym. So that would be happening from 7:30 till about 8:30. Once we have closed the rear door, it will stay closed until the next morning. That entrance will not be used at any time until it is time to open it again for entrance in the morning. Drop-off will happen, dismissal will happen only out of our front door on East Capitol Street. Parents will come in, sign their children out, and walk back out the front door with their children.
I appreciate you being so meticulous about
these are babies under my care. I got to think about them.
This won't be interminable, I promise. So you mentioned that the agreement with the security firm would be using the same firm. Will it be the firm that's currently working in the building now?
Yes.
And is that a decision that your leadership made on your own, or did you review the company and make that decision, or was that?
Well, we for our current campus, we have our own security. Yeah. When we started looking at moving into that building and started thinking about the ways that it would be, we would have the most seamless security setup. This obviously was the thing that leapt out as a great idea. So when we talked about facilities use and how that would work, this was the idea that we all agreed on, and our executive director was there at the meetings where this was being discussed.
Can I just?
Please.
Thank you. Can I just add that The reason that we have such detailed planning is because we have been meeting with personnel at the Maya Angelou. Can you hear me? Very good. Okay. The reason that we have such detailed plans is because we have been meeting with personnel at Maya Angelou on a weekly and then bi-weekly basis for the past year and a half. And so there's a lot of thought that has gone into issues like security, a lot of thought that has gone into possible partnerships with Maya Angelou, how we can programmatically partner. And so, again, we have been deliberate about this process because we want to provide the best service to the families and the children.
I appreciate that. The contract with the security provider, that's, do they report to you? Do you manage, is it your own contract with the security provider that's with your leadership?
We have not officially entered into a contract yet, but that is part, we have several things that need to be bid out for, and that will be part of the process.
Got it. And then I guess lastly from me, did we invite leadership from Maya Angelou here? Do we have any present?
They couldn't be reached.
Okay, but let me then just ask you, at this stage in the process, has all of that cooperation gone fully to your expectations and needs?
It's gone above our expectations. It has been quite wonderful to work with people who are dedicated to serving children in the district with this much passion. The cooperation and sense of partnership has been very real.
Right, I appreciate that. I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Because we have representatives from, I'm sorry, someone's on the phone. Was that?
Yeah, I had a question. Is it a good time for that?
Go ahead and ask your questions.
Okay. Hi, this is Darren Woodruff. Can you briefly, especially given the concerns we heard regarding Statesman and the rocket ship combined situation, can you walk us through the steps that you have taken to date in terms of making the community aware of the new school and making sure you had support? And if there have been any concerns raised, I'd love to hear what you've done or what you plan to do to resolve them.
Absolutely. So to date, I have been to the meetings of the 7C ANC a number of times. We have met individually with Chairman Holmes a number of times. I'm a resident of the community. I live on Eid Street, and I've talked about the school at my neighborhood association meeting. We've put information about it out on neighborhood listservs. We've taken part in the Maya Fest, which is a festival to which the entire community is invited. I've gone to visit the Kenilworth Civic Association. We've gone by the Boys and Girls Club. We have really tried to reach out to members of the community. There's actually a couple folks here whose names I've heard that I've been trying to find, and so I'm going to track them down before we get out the door. So like I said, I live in the community. We're interested in making this something that works for our neighborhoods.
Also, if I can add, even before we located or identified a location east of the river, we started doing work a couple of years ago, participating in education fairs. There is a bilingual education fair at a library. Is it Francis Scott Francis Gregory, librarian, Ward 7. We also met with Councilmember Gray's Chief of Staff. Again, prior to identifying a location, we've tried to cover all of our bases because we are a community school. Community is in the name of the school, and that's intentional because not only do we invite members of the community into our school, but internally, we're a very tightly knit community. And so we want to be able to integrate when we move in, and we felt as if this would be the best way to do it, to do our legwork in advance. And so when the time came for us to actually move into a school, that we will have already made contacts.
Okay. Very good. Well,
I do have one more question. In terms of the staffing of the school, can you give us a little insight into how you plan to have teachers? Will they be coming from your other site? Will you be bringing on completely new teachers? How's that going to work?
So a little bit of both. We will be bringing over several teachers from our current location, and then also hiring several folks new to the school, and actually rehiring a couple of folks who were with the school and then went back home to South America and have come back to the States. We wanted to make sure that the culture of our schools remains consistent and supportive of children and of staff. And so we had to make sure to bring over a good amount of seasoning from the current campus, but then also keep that.
How many teachers are coming over from the Ward 5 location?
There will be 3 or 4 classroom teachers coming over from the Ward 5 location, and then all of the senior staff are coming over from the Ward 5 location.
Also, in order to maintain that consistency across both campuses, we intend to hold joint professional development between teachers and staff at both campuses on a regular basis, once a trimester. We are also, before the beginning of the school year, we will have a whole school retreat where we will focus on team building and culturally responsive teaching in dealing with issues of equity and diversity and inclusion.
Just one follow-up question. Thank you for describing the configuration of the parking lot for drop-off and bringing in, I guess, the new entrance from the street parallel to East Capitol behind. It's a good-sized parking lot, but help me with where your teachers are going to park and what the parking arrangements are going to be.
So the new extension of the parking lot will have 10 spaces. We're not, in our first year, it's unlikely that our staff will end up using all 10 of those spaces. But then also the area, that block, there's street parking that is unzoned. I personally think it would be a great opportunity to see a couple of folks as you're walking towards the building from your car. I'll be walking to work, and so it won't be needing a parking space. But there's sufficient street parking in the area for our staff.
Great. And just to confirm, next year will be pre-K3, pre-K4, and then with roughly 140 students, and then the growth pattern from there on out?
Next year, we'll have pre-K 3, 4, and kindergarten, with a total of 140 students, and growing 1 grade level per year after that until we reach the 5th grade. Because of our language immersion model, it's difficult for us to start beyond kindergarten for children to have the best immersion experience.
Great. Well, thank you for being here this evening. We'll see you back in July.
Very good.
Thank you. We have our team from Friendship PCS.
I'm going to present and then skedaddle so you all can all be seated. Okay. If you just introduce yourselves really.
Good evening, Pat Brantley, Friendship Public Charter School CEO.
Dorana Tyndall, Friendship Public Charter Schools Director of ELA.
Monique Miller, Director of Performance Reporting and Evaluation.
Bielka Scott Marcus, the Chief Academic Officer for Friendship Public Charter School.
Peggy Jones, Head of Schools, now serving as the Principal of Collegiate Academy.
Ken Cherry, Chief of Staff.
This is a bit unorthodox. We're short a couple of chairs. I'm going to present and then I will get out of the way. Once again, Terry Quinn, I work for the Public Charter School Board. This is a public hearing to discuss an amendment request submitted by Friendship Public Charter School to implement a new online curricular program for its high school students that is run by the online service provider Edmentum beginning in school year 18-19. The school plans to open a new online academy within its existing Friendship Collegiate Academy High School, where 100 students in grades 9 through 12 will participate full-time in an online high school academy. Friendship will also offer students the opportunity to earn credits for credit recovery or to take courses that aren't currently offered in its traditional high school programs. And obviously the representatives are here to answer your questions, so I will step aside.
Pat, do you want to make some opening remarks and then we'll open it to
Certainly.
the board?
Thank you for having us here today to discuss our request. We are seeking to expand our current online K-8 program to high school to offer that option to our families. It is really something that is a long time coming for the families who have been asking for an online high school for several years. For those members of the board who were here in 2015, you might recall that when you approved us to take over Community Academy, which had the online school at that time, we brought up the point that it would be important to offer a high school program. We're particularly grateful that you're considering this request now.
It is really something a long time.
Sorry. As we are concerned about our current online students who are going to enter the 9th grade without the option that their family thinks is the best to meet their needs and will make the biggest difference in their education. In fact, we brought a letter from one of our K-8 online parents. It's representative of what we've heard over the years, and I hope that we can submit it now. Is that okay? I'll just read a short section from it. Gabrielle Montgomery, who's the parent of a rising 9th grader, writes, "I truly wish I was here tonight. However, I am away with my daughter, who, pending the online high school option, will be a Friendship freshman at Collegiate Academy. For many students in the district, the online high school is the only option available to meet their unique needs by providing a flexible learning environment. As our society becomes global and our children have more opportunities to experience the world at a much younger age, we must offer an educational program that promotes educational excellence, independence, and flexibility. Friendship Online has successfully provided online options for grades K-8. There is no reason not to offer the same program for grades 9 to 12. Robin Montgomery, whose mother wrote the letter, is a 13-year-old rising tennis star. During her 8th grade school year, she traveled with Team USA to England and to France, where she was the doubles champion in teen tennis in both places. She also traveled to Mexico City to qualify for the World Junior Championships, which she did qualify for, and she will travel to the Czech Republic in August for the event. She has been able to complete all of her schoolwork and pursue her passion. At least she has been able to do so while she is in middle school. If we have the option to offer it to her for high school, she could do the same thing. And that's why it's important to us. Robin is just one example. The reasons that families want an online option or virtual school, they are many. And I think what's most important is that we honor their choice by providing a quality option, and we believe that we can do so. There's currently no public or public charter option available to these families, and so we hope you will positively consider our request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, first of all, for this proposal. I just wanted to hear a little bit about how you've learned from your current program. It is a Tier 2 program, and how you will draw upon those lessons to improve the program in a high school.
Sure.
So, as you mentioned, we've been operating the K-8 online campus for the last couple of years. We've also examined literature and research on online schools across the country. And what we've learned is that we know there are things that we do really well, and we provide great support to our students, and that we know moving into high school that they will need just as much support. So, for example, we have embedded into our programming and in our budget a counselor, a full-time counselor, because we've read that students who have at least a full-time counselor working with their online students see an increase in performance in reading, not necessarily in math, but we also know that there will be tutors that we'll have to have in place to help students grapple with that, with the content that's more complex and builds on their concept development.
I also think that one of the things that we learned in our current K-8, in our current K-8 is that re-enrollment is the school reaching Tier 1 status. And we've discussed in the past some of the challenges with re-enrollment in an online situation, because parents have to guarantee that they will stay home as a coach. Because this school also has a brick and mortar available currently, students would be transferring from within the online academy to Friendship Collegiate if parents could not maintain their place in the home as the learning coach. And so that takes away that issue. We've run the numbers, your staff may have as well, but when we take re-enrollment out of the online K-8, then the school performs at a 62 and a 64 for the last 2 years.
Thank you, that's really helpful. You mentioned the tutoring piece, and I know that there's also the piece of having current Friendship teachers also provide in-person support. So can you talk about who those tutors are, how you're going to pick the current teachers that will be providing that support? How does that piece work of this program?
Okay. So we will vet teachers. They will be hired. We will select them, but they will be trained, orientated by the Ed Options Academy. They will be Ed Options employees, but we will have a say in the selection of those teachers. So those teachers will be available to provide instruction virtually, and then we will also have to have tutors, whether they're resident teachers or some type of staffing available during the brick and click hours, because if we have the brick and click available to students Monday through Friday, the teachers may not be available every single day because they'll probably be online with students. So we will have to supplement that instruction with tutors who will be available to work with students during those times.
So are the tutors Friendship employees?
Yes.
Okay, that's the other platform or employees from there?
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to sort of pick up and follow for the high school, the brick and mortar component is a significant aspect of the application that you put forward. Could you discuss where that will be offered, required? Will it be subject specific for which campus, and how that work?
So the brick and mortar component is really so there are two different things. There's the full-time virtual student who will spend the majority of their time learning in asynchronous and asynchronous. So in real time through face-to-face, one-on-one discussions with teachers, small group chats, discussion groups, those types of things. And then students will be able to come in 1 to 2 times a week to receive extra support, so tutoring, specialized services if they're a student with an IEP, advisory, because college counseling will be a very important aspect of this program to make sure that students are guided appropriately and that they receive those supports. Then for the singleton courses, the way that we do it would be the same way that we do it currently at our collegiate and tech prep campuses. So we have students who take dual enrollment classes, who receive extra, support through other online means. And so Peggy can speak a little bit more about that, but it is scheduled through the master schedule, and students have built into their schedules time in which they go online, and there is a teacher who monitors that classroom, is a collegiate teacher or a tech prep teacher who monitors and supports those students while they're online engaging in that course.
So thank you. Maybe just to drill a little bit further, take, for example, high school chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Like, will there be a physical lab component to that course, and how will that be handled?
Yes, so all of the content, is taught online and virtually, but what we feel is truly important is that our students have those hands-on, real-world lab experiences. It's important for those students to really grapple with chemicals or weights or whatever scientific equipment that they will have to use in an actual lab. So we will have labs available. It's not, it won't necessarily be once a week, but it will supplement the virtual labs that students will experience online.
And will those labs be exclusively in collegiate?
So we have options. So collegiate has, full science labs, but we also have portable labs available for our Nicholson campus.
For the teachers that you described that will be the other entity's employees, okay, I'm going to say this very badly, but will all of the teachers who are providing instruction be compliant with the requirements for certification and licensure?
For the credentials?
Yeah.
Yes, they will be. Absolutely.
Got it. Okay, and then lastly, with regard to other activities like extracurricular and sports, will they be, how will that work and what opportunities will they have?
Sure. So the students will have access to any of the extracurriculars that are already available at collegiate and at tech prep. And then in addition to that, during our design camp where we engaged students, parents, teachers, staff, they shared with us some of the ideas that they had for extracurriculars. So it's not just limited to what's available at collegiate, but if there are interests and clubs that they want to start, we support that as well.
And then just last one, in the K-8 Friendship Online model, the particular provider that you work with has the requirement that a parent be home or engaged. I don't want to oversteal that requirement. Does that apply to this provider and this campus as well?
If the student is under 18, there has to be someone in the home with them, yes.
Great. Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
Steve or Darren on the line, any questions for Friendship?
I don't have any questions. Thanks.
Nope, none from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Naomi.
And if you could just walk us through any challenges you foresee in opening the online academy. What have you learned so far? I think you alluded to some of the answers, but I just want to know, thinking through what you've learned with the what is it, tech prep? What is that? If you could just walk through any of the challenges that you are making considerations for.
So our Friendship Online K-8 has grown fairly quickly since we took it over from Community Academy. And what we have recognized is that there are parents who are coming new into a virtual learning experience who may not be aware of all of the requirements that are necessary. And so that is sort of one challenge that we are mitigating, because most of the students are feeding from the current online K-8 and will rise to the 9th grade. For students who are new coming in, we would operate a similar bridge program that we do in our brick and mortar, so they can become familiar with what does it mean to be an online student and the parent of an online student. So that's one challenge, is unfamiliarity with being in an online school. I think the second piece has to do with what we've learned around access to technology, and that students need to have resources that we can provide. The budget allows us to provide each student with a laptop and to help support their access to online. So those are two of the main challenges.
So, not a question. I just want to make a quick comment.
I had one question, but you described the profile of one student earlier. If you could just give us a sense of, especially since so many of them you have experience with who are now growing into the high school, what are the specific needs that make an online program a good fit for them?
We have a portion of families who are military families, and so they've moved into the city possibly for just a short period of time. They may have been in an online school elsewhere and they'd like to continue that here, or they don't want to commit to whatever their local school is and they prefer online. We have families that have homeschooled their students up to a certain grade and they want more support with curriculum and a structured program. We have families like the one I described where there is a lot of travel that the families do. And we have a portion of families who, for whatever reason, didn't feel safe in their home schools and wanted another option and wanted the community that online provides.
Okay. Thank you.
Welcome.
I want to say I was very much a part of the prior conversation a few years back, and I just want to express my appreciation for how characteristically thoughtful and deliberate you've been about this whole approach and each of the decisions that made leading up to it. I have a real appreciation for the points that you mentioned, referenced just here relating to how a full-time virtual school works and the aspects of the performance framework that include re-enrollment and perhaps attendance. Look forward to engaging with you, thoughtfully on how best to make sure that the framework accurately captures a school with the needs of yours. And I think this is an exciting prospect, and I'm really looking forward to what it comes to offer the kids of the district and the families.
Thank you. We are too.
Great. No other questions? Thank you. We'll see you next month. All right. And our last of our charter amendments, rocket ship.
Good evening. I'm Shai Calvo, Chief Growth and Community Engagement Officer for Rocket Ship Public Schools.
Good evening. I'm Tamika Joyner, the Manager of Growth and Community Engagement for Rocket Ship Public Schools in D.C.
This is a public hearing to discuss an amendment request submitted by Rocket Ship Education DC Public Charter School to delay opening its third campus until school year 1920. If approved, the school will agree to the following conditions. Rocket Ship DC may only open its third campus in school year 1920 and may not open its fourth campus until a subsequent school year pending the conditions of its original charter agreement. And secondly, Rocket Ship DC may only open its third campus in school year 1920 if the school submits a signed lease to the DC Public Charter School Board for the campus's facility by no later than March 1, 2019. Otherwise, the opening of the school's third campus may be subject to further delays per PCSB's discretion. The representatives are present to answer your questions.
Great. Thank you. Shai, if you'd like to make an opening statement, give some context for discussion tonight.
Yes, and I think there's a lot more in the packet about this, but just kind of briefly giving a little bit of context and framing. Rocketship has now been operating schools in the District of Columbia for 2 years, and we're really proud of the high quality of excellence we brought at Rocketship Rise Academy as well as Rocketship Legacy Prep. We're excited to have a chance to come back and share the results from this past year with both schools because we think we've delivered on our promise of giving a great education to our children and students. I think, though, that the process of moving with speed and urgency, and sort of that, of to serve more families, also leaves an opportunity to reflect and to learn in that process. And I think, this amendment here tonight, as well as the broader conversation, does give us some room for reflection about, in being part of this community for the last 2 years, how do we do better going forward to serve our families better, as well as to engage our communities in a way that, brings about the sort of high quality contribution to the communities that we seek to serve. So in the case of our third school in requesting a 1-year delay, I think we were moving forward with urgency to try to make something happen. And I think when that happens, sometimes it's easy to lose sight of, you believe you can make things happen, but you don't get things squared away. So I think we had a couple twists and turns in that process. But at some point in that process, we did pause and realize that pushing forward further would be a mistake, and we were better to take a pause, wait a year, and do things the right way rather than pushing forward and trying to make something fit when there's other work to be done. So I think both the request for a delay comes from with some degree of humility and be able to say that we've learned some lessons and sometimes you have to stop and pause, but also the conditions that we requested and I think the staff has recommended to make sure that before we go forward with our third campus, we put in place a signed lease by March 1st, so before the My School DC lottery, so that we're ensured that when we make that commitment to hold a lottery for a future school, we can deliver on that promise to make sure that all the ducks are in a row and we don't have to come back to you with any further surprises.
Appreciate that. Questions?
Oh, you can go first. So I, one, have a comment, and then two, have questions. I hope you all were here at the start of the meeting and were able to not only listen to, but hear all of the concerns that the community members are laying at the feet of another institution because of the challenges with the community engagement that you all did not do well in going into that ward and going into Ward 7. The challenges with that are not only do those implications fall at your feet, but they also impact schools that are then coupled with schools who don't do their work well, and then have to carry the burden of that when they try to go into the same community. So I think in having both hats of the work that I do on right now, being very intentional about delaying your process is important, but thinking about the overall community in the communities that you want to serve, that you're going to be housed, but also the schools and the community that we have within the ecosystem of the charter schools here in DC. What that does is it delays the progress, the work, all of the efforts that people have made over the 20 years that we've been doing this. It makes it more difficult for schools that are trying to do it well. It makes it that much more difficult for them to be able to go into a space and place, case in point, where by no delay or fault of their own are now going to be coupled with the wrongs that have been done before them. So I just want you to be very intentional about how you go about thinking about how you proceed in this work going forward and how that affects not only Rocketship, because you are a large organization, but how it impacts single-site schools that have the best intentions, have to make shifts very quickly, and then have to deal with the implications of how other institutions have done their work. So that's first. And so second, I'd really just want to know, in terms of the work that you're doing to open up the delayed school, what are you learning from what happened in the past to be able to do that work effectively in opening your next campus?
Well, thank you for your questions. I want to say just, we're not part of the public hearing. That's still, you still have a site in front of you with Statesman. But I do want to say that, with regarding to that opportunity, we were approached just in the last couple of weeks about whether we might be able to house Statesman at Rocketship Legacy Prep over, for 1 year as they get off the ground. And I think from our standpoint, our board has done a lot of deliberations and made the decision that they are a mission-aligned organization who's, especially middle school boys in Ward 7, there's a lot of potential there. So we've worked very hard in the last weeks, tried to accommodate them because we believe in the mission of that organization. But obviously that's really the question of how they proceed is up to this board. But we do think that, they're a partner. We'd be proud to share space for a few dozen of their young men. With regard to the broader thing, broader issue of how we move forward with our third school opening, I think it's engaging sooner, and taking the time. I think when you're opening a new school, and especially in the case of, Rocketship Rise Academy, when we opened it in 2016, it was, we opened year one, 440 students. It was a relatively large fresh start opening. And I think as a result, going year to year when you're opening, time matters. And so getting those things right, having the opportunity to pivot. So I think I would say with Ward 7, we started late. And I think that's a lesson that we learned. And even though we attended dozens of public hearings and, both ANCs and public space committee hearings, I think there were 4 hearings over 6 months. Even though there were extensive delays, we never caught up. And so I think it's important that you get things put to bed, you get decisions made earlier in that process, because the sooner you engage, not just in public hearings, but in people's living rooms and one-on-one conversations, that's critical in that process. And so you have more time, because these things shouldn't be done quickly. They need to be done with time. And I think this extra year delay is helpful for us in making sure that when we go forward, we can do it right.
And I know that Mr. Patterson is not here. His name, of course, came up earlier. And I just want to continue to just lay out the point of, yes, I'm hopeful that the work that the 2 mission-aligned schools can do would be of benefit to the ward. But I think in hearing the specific concerns that the community members brought, and of course this is a snapshot of the community. I think one of the commenters made the point of it's not everyone, but at the same time it's enough people that the work that you all want to do for students can be heavily impacted by the lack of true engagement and making sure that you're being thoughtful about how you go about doing that. So I would say, however you plan to proceed in doing that, that you're doing it in a way that is not only genuine, but thoughtful in how you engage with each and every one of the members of the community that were here today.
Yes, and I should mention that Shock Patterson, our former regional director, has moved on from Rocketship, and we will be hiring a new regional director soon, hopefully. I can assure you that he or she will be engaging not just in future communities, but deeply in the communities that we already seek to serve. And we're very proud that there are many families and students in the Fort Davis community who are both attending Rocketship Legacy Prep and will continue, but we need to go beyond just the families and students that we serve to all members of this community, because ultimately we want to be an asset to the entire community.
You've now said March 1st as the latest date. I know it's in everyone's interest that you find a space before that. What is the more practical plan for identifying a site, a ward, if that's still part of the conversation about where the school is going to be and what wards you're looking in, and what the process looks like between now and at latest March 1?
That's a great question. We are moving very actively now. I mean, identifying a location in the District of Columbia, for facilities is not the easiest question. And so we are moving now to identify locations, and we're really focused on communities of need. So we're looking at where are there not enough access to Tier 1 seats in communities, and I think that's kind of our focus. And then looking at opportunities, because from that, looking at what are the options, both looking at permanent locations, which is our goal. We've been we've been pleased to be able to build, we think, two beautiful campuses here at the District of Columbia, new campuses, which are, we think, high-quality facilities that our families deserve and our students deserve. But they're, multi-acre sites are not readily available in the District of Columbia, so that's very difficult to do. So we're looking both at temporary and permanent sites. We hope to be able to identify a location sooner, and then from that, be doing the community outreach that is necessary. So the March 1st by a signed lease may sound like that is the last step in the process. I mean, before you get to a signed lease, there's so much work to be done. So our hope would actually be clear on where we plan to go and done the community engagement, this summer and this fall, so that by the time the My School DC process starts, we have clarity and we can communicate to our families where we will be. Certainly initially, but any temporary site is merely a preliminary step. You need to be able to give them a vision and a clarity regarding their permanent home.
And Terry, the March 1 date, we're clear, is ahead of the close of the lottery. I'm just from that standpoint of the process.
So, yes, I believe so. I believe March 31st is typically the deadline for the close of the elementary common lottery. So it would be essentially 30 days prior.
And do you have?
I have a question, Rick.
Go ahead.
Steve, and then
My
Saba.
question for, okay, thanks. My question for Rocket Ship is, there have been some challenges with the first two campuses. Now it looks like the third campus is off to a clunky start. What's the rush? Why the need right now to move forward with a third campus?
I mean, I think the year delay suggests that we are asking to slow down this process. I do think that the way the charter agreement that we signed with the district was structured, and I think we made an unusual, agreement in that we made a commitment that if our schools achieve Tier 1 status, and all of our schools that have opened at that point achieve Tier 1 status or Tier 1 equivalency, that green lights the next school. The way the structure is put in place is if you don't open the school the next year, that control goes away. And so part of the rush, if you put it in those terms, is actually a structure of our agreement, and we would be very open and about restructuring that to allow proper time for deliberations. I mean, now that we have two schools open, now that we have two buildings built, the idea of structuring that so that one has us focus on quality. I mean, delivering Tier 1 schools is not a easy accomplishment, and I'm really proud of the academic quality of our schools in both of our 2 years, but there might be worth talking with the PCSB about different ways to structure that so that we aren't set up in a situation where it's use it or lose it. You can actually slow it down and make sure you get it right, and I think that may be worthy of future conversations.
I think it's worth talking because there may actually be a difference of interpretation of the agreement. From our perspective, you're moving more slowly would not void your right to open the school, the next school. So we should take this offline, but make sure we have the same understanding of what your charter says.
I guess going along with that train of thought, I guess my understanding was the quick movement was necessary for fiscal reasons, that you needed to kind of stack the development of these campuses so that you could afford to have all three of them. Is that incorrect?
There are financial considerations, but there are other considerations as well. I mean, I think what matters most that you open a high-quality school in a community that you're going to serve well, where there's need and demand. So, I mean, we all live within other parameters, and I think those parameters matter. But I think, doing it right has to be the paramount concern.
And do you have some locations in mind for the third campus?
We do have locations that we are exploring, but nothing to a place that I could share publicly.
Okay. Will they present the same issues in terms of construction?
Any large school in the district, especially if it's from the ground up, is going to present a process that you have to go through. So and I assure you that the District of Columbia, in addition to the PCSB giving approval to open a school, there are many public entities that require a process that you must go through from in various forms of land use. The Public Space Committee, which is a committee I've gotten to know very well in the last couple of years, is not easy. It's a lot more than a curb cut. I mean, and so there is a formal process, and the district has many of those. And I think, so in building a permit structure, you need the lead time in order to get the approvals, and those approvals require giving special considerations to ANCs going through the process. The DC has a public process that we will respect and observe in anything we do.
We heard some comment earlier about the slow start of Rocket Ship Legacy. I'm wondering if you have any update on enrollment for the school next year.
Yes, so we did, Rocket Ship Legacy Prep did open small. That's because because of actually the Public Space Committee and the process that we went through, the permanent facility was not available at the start of school. So we briefly co-located, or for the first half of the year, co-located at Rocket Ship Rise Academy. And we're able to move. So it had, there were less, maybe just a few more total enrollment of 100 students. So it was a small opening. We expect the school with Apple Tree and pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 to be, above 400 students next year, and that's our expectation. We remain on track to do that. We've actually seen strong demand for the school, and I think it's year one performance, of which, again, we're really proud and excited to share, demonstrates that Ward 7 does still have a strong demand for high-quality Tier 1 schools.
One other question about something I heard in the public hearing. We heard from a couple of neighbors about the cutting down of trees and the loss of shade in their homes, and I'm wondering if you have done anything to plant trees or mitigate that so that obviously they take time to grow, but so that the loss of shade would be ultimately rectified.
We have planted trees, but trees also take time to grow. And I think from our standpoint, we, on a daily and weekly basis, are open and willing to have conversations with individual residents. There was a issue that was also raised about the dumpster and the location of the dumpster, which we've had conversations. Part of the challenge is the dumpster is in a place that was approved by the DC government. Moving it is not as simple as saying you want to move it. You can't just move it anywhere. So when you have an approved location for a dumpster, anywhere else you move it to may also trigger a process. And so I think from our standpoint, we think it's very important that we continue to talk to our neighbors, and we are open to those conversations. And we would like to mitigate any concerns. We think it is a beautiful building. We would invite you all to come visit if you haven't already. But we recognize it is also a disruption to people who, neighbors who, were happy with the prior situation. So we have more work to do to mitigate impact of, especially as the school grows to scale. But we're open to suggestions as well about how we can serve and provide a public benefit as well. And so some of that is also making our school available. It's a gym. We have a space. We have community meetings there. We want it to be not just a great school, but a community resource. And I think we're open for ways to we can provide additional public benefit.
As someone who used to sit on the Public Space Committee, I've been in a lot of committees. I would say that being thoughtful about not only their approval, but how that impacts the community, that outweighs their approval, right? And making sure that those two things are coupled when you're making decisions on how to best serve your school and your students. And so whomever takes on the role that was left, that Jock just left, that you be thoughtful about how they engage, taking some of the concerns that were brought here today into consideration on how they go about the work in Ward 7, but also when they start to do work on the ground in Ward 5. But thank you.
Don? I could, 3 questions if I could. First, as you're looking at locations for the third campus. What is your strategy for community engagement that you either have done or are planning to do prior to signing the lease? Just generally, obviously, you don't know what, to the extent that you can discuss the specific locations.
I think right now we have not set on a ward, much less a particular neighborhood, but I do think we are, as I mentioned before, we have examined on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis, where are the neighborhoods in the District of Columbia where there's the greatest need for Tier 1 quality seats. And I think we are looking, before we settle on a single site, I think we are interested in beginning the conversation then. So we don't pick a site and then do community engagement. You want to be able to do community engagement where you can have multiple options so that you can, that you can factor community engagement into your process. It's not something that's done after the fact. I think that would be a terrible miss to do it backwards that way. So I think that's probably the first part. But I mean, it is about, you don't want to begin engaging in a community where there are no viable options, because that just sets you up for disappointment.
Thank you. My second question, I want to give you the opportunity to respond to one point that was raised during the public hearing earlier, and that is the longer-term plan for the campus with the lease that'll be discussed tonight. It was a question of accommodation of students and ages, and how that would work. I just wanted to give you the chance to address that directly.
The plan is for space for 60 fourth grade boys. And so being that next year, Legacy Prep will serve pre-K 3 through third grade, so we otherwise would not have fourth graders in the building, but it is a building that was designed for pre-K 3 through fifth grade. So it's within the catchment, and 60 in a normal class, grade size at a rocket ship school is 100 students. So we think that, we believe in, more than we believe, we've scoped out in great detail how the operations of a campus would work with a separate operator serving 60 fourth grade boys. And I say it's separate operator. We also have Apple Tree in the building. So there are 3 operators, even though they're under the same umbrella. And there have been a lot of conversations. I will give credit to the Statesman team. They've been incredibly thoughtful, not just in what they've said, but in the tone they've struck about trying to make this accommodation work. So, I won't pretend that, any operations or having a different operator doesn't, pose challenges you have to work, but I think we've grown fond and gotten to know the people involved, and we feel confident that we can make it work in a way that, the building will, probably feel it the most, but I don't think it'll be as perceptible for those outside if we do our job and make sure that the operations run smoothly.
And it's your plan that we're talking about a one-year lease?
For our standpoint, it's imperative that's the 1 year, because we will continue growing at Legacy Prep, and so I think we've asked that it actually be made explicit in the agreement that they will only be there for 1 year, because that for us is an imperative. And we want to be able to help them, but I don't think we're in a position of they have to figure out year 2 and beyond where they're going to be.
And then last question. Could you speak to Rocket Ship's approach for giving the community the opportunity to make use of the facility beyond just the students in the school day?
I think it's individuals, how it wants to be used. And I think we've done different things like Rocket Ship Rise. I think it's really formed like a community school. I think there's a lot of things that we can do there and make it available. We've actually, even some of the design parameters allow for the ability to use the gym, but kind of corded off from the building, so having community events. I think even Legacy Prep, I believe right now we are using the space for community meetings, and I think that's something we want. But ultimately, the community has to come to us with, in a conversation around how it would like to use it. So as a discussion, there's perhaps not as many young children in the Fort Davis community as there are in Woodland Terrace or around Rocket Ship Rise, but that doesn't mean that doesn't change over time, and we think a high-quality school in a neighborhood helps attract families. So I think we look at it dynamically. We also have a use agreement for parking with the church that's nearby, and I think trying to figure out ways to accommodate the community is something we need to think about. But I think we'd like with a new regional director, I think we'll be in a better position to have more meaningful conversations. But the school, it's built, it's there. We think it's a real community resource. We much rather how do we benefit the community broadly and move forward with what is there is a better framing for the conversation.
Thank you.
So if we don't have any other comments from the board, so we'll see you back in July. Also, I just want to echo what Scott shared earlier, is that as we think about the path forward, not necessarily allowing the agreement that we've worked under thus far to define what might be a suboptimal expansion. So let's make sure we have those conversations offline about what that might or could look like.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right. Rashida Young, Data and Document Submission Policy.
Hello, I am Rashida Young, Senior Manager of the Equity and Fidelity Team. This is a public hearing to discuss revisions to the Public Charter School Board's Data and Document Submission Policy. The revised policy was open for public comment on May 21st, and we received no public comments. Staff proposes revisions in order to clarify what data and documents schools are required to submit, as well as the consequences of non-submission. We also propose these changes to ensure our practices and the policy are aligned. The revised policy includes submission requirements for school contact information and documentation related to site reviews, charter renewals, charter goals, procurement contracts, and school responses to community complaints.
Excellent. Any questions on this one from anyone on the board? So one thing, Rashida, if I could ask you to comment on how we're balancing our need and desire for these documents being submitted with the burdens that we're placing on schools.
Sure. So most of these requirements that are in the policy they've already been requests for schools. What the policy does is it adds consistency to PCSB's response if we don't receive a certain document. And so ultimately, it's giving schools transparency of what may happen. So whereas before, they may receive an email from one staff saying, this is the follow-up needed, please do X, Y, and Z. Now it's kind of a consistent format of we will reach out, we will provide next steps in an early warning. If we still don't receive the data or documents, then the school may receive an out of compliance notice, a notice of concern. And so it just, again, it norms the process for all of our various data and document submission requirements.
And how common is it for a school to receive a notice of concern? Because
it's not common at all. This isn't a policy that we anticipate many schools are going to have to be up here speaking with you about. Schools generally cure the issue after they receive that first early warning email. Occasionally it gets to an out of compliance notice, and to date it has never reached a notice of concern.
Very good. This may be one we don't have many more questions on.
No problem.
Except for Don. No, okay. Excellent. Darren, Steve, I'm going to assume quiet means no questions on this one.
Yep, no questions.
Thank you.
No questions.
Thank you, Rashida.
Okay, thank you.
Hannah.
Sean Hardnett. I'm the CEO and founder for North Star and Statesman College Preparatory Academy for Boys.
And hello, my name is Hannah Cousineau, and I am a specialist on the Equity and Fidelity team at DC PCSB. This is a public hearing on the proposed facility for Statesman College Preparatory Academy for Boys Public Charter School, formerly North Star College Preparatory Academy for Boys Public Charter School. Securing a facility is a condition of receiving full charter approval. Previously, at the May 21st board meeting, you held a public hearing on Statesman PCS's intent to co-locate with Cesar Chavez PCS for Public Policy Parkside Campus at 3701 Hayes Street Northeast. However, the schools were unable to finalize a lease agreement. Now, Statesman PCS intends to co-locate for 1 year with Rocket Ship Education DC PCS Legacy Prep at 4250 Massachusetts Avenue Southeast. DC PCSB staff notified Commissioner Linda Green of ANC 7E02 by email on June the 12th and by mail on June 15th. We also posted the notice on our website and in the DC Register. Upon meeting all conditions, you will vote on approving the school to open for school year 2018-19 at a special meeting on June 29th. We have received public comment tonight on the current proposed facility, and previously we received 4 comments regarding other potential locations, all of which the school is no longer pursuing. Sean is here from North Star/Statesman to answer any of your questions.
Great. John? Well, want to start by really saying thank you to the members of the civic associations and ANCs that were here tonight, Ward 7, Education Council, because I truly do appreciate the fact that they would take the time out to come and even offer opposition to the school's co-location where it is. I think that everyone in this room knows that we were here last month after working 6 months on a co-location agreement that would not have been, that would have not placed Rocket Ship in the situation that it is in, where they have had to support us in the way that they have. But in a 9th inning, 11th hour October surprise, like nothing we've seen before, we found ourselves in this situation, and we put out a Hail Mary to all of our supporters in the education community here. And Rocket Ship graciously agreed to enter into talks with us that would allow us to co-locate in their building for 1 year in a way that allowed this program to live, I fully and respectfully accept the admonishment of this community over and over again that, and I think a couple of people did speak to this, we've tried to do tremendous work across the year. I sat in ANC meetings quietly in the back saying nothing for a year and a half, hearing from the community and bringing that back to our design team, and then sent our design team out for half a year to just sit. Don't say anything. It's not about us. Just listen to what this community's needs are. And we put all of that into the design of the school. You all know the work that we did to involve parents and children, 450 children, 100 African American and Latino men, in specific empathy interviews to get out of them what their experience had been in schools to inform the program that we put together, and have continued to work a very deliberate campaign to make sure that the communities that we are serving are aware of us, and stayed on the list to present at Parkside Civic Association, 7D, several of the other ANCs, even after it was clear we weren't going to be in those communities, because we had been recruiting families from those communities, and we have said from the beginning that every community from which we recruit students has the right and the privilege to know, to have the opportunity to speak to us about what we're doing. And so we openly accept the admonishment that there was more that we could have done at specific layers of the community. I moved to this city and immediately went to work for Life Pieces to Masterpieces because it's in my calling to work with Black and brown boys. Immediately went to work for them and have not stopped volunteering for them for the entire time that I have been in this city as a way to connect with the community that we served. Had no intent to start a school, but as was stated by, Mary Brown, the data was clear, and having worked to do turnaround work for several schools in this city, it's clear that we needed to do something different for boys. That was the foundation of this program. That has always been the foundation of this program, and that will be the foundation of this program. And we fully appreciate and understand the difficulty that the community that we serve has continued to experience and losses as people come into the community and quote unquote do things to them and not with them. And we tried very hard to make sure that those young boys and their parents were in the room telling us, informing the program that we put together. And it is clear that some parts of the community just didn't get what they needed to get. We have asked and will continue to ask for a more clear roadmap of what respectful engagement of each particular community means, because for each neighborhood it is different. It is very different. But we do not intend to insult any of these community members. We just don't intend to do that. And so we will take this period of time, whatever this board decides, and we will re-engage this community again to make sure that not only do we co-locate with Rocket Ship, but that Rocket Ship and Statesman are able to thrive together and in a way that this community will support. Because these are two schools with missions that are specifically designed to impact something that is there. And so, I openly, it is never my intent, it was certainly not our intent to put Rocket Ship in a space where they had to explain for us. And I think that the people who came up here very clearly in the individual conversations that we have had with many of them, they have concerns. They have concerns with regards to how their community is engaged. And so again, we hear that. We will continue to reach out. The truth is, I probably spoke to more folks tonight than I have been able to get in front of in the last, days, weeks, and months that we have been reaching out to communicate. But we're just gonna have to hold and go back to digging to find out how we get in front of people so that they get the opportunity to ask the questions that they need to ask and to come to learn about this program. We have not seen from any one of these folks, people are not upset about this program. Largely, folks agree that this needs to happen. Their concern is how we have engaged them.
Thank you, Sean. Board members. Don?
Build on that, I'll give you the chance to build on that. We heard tonight from ANC 7B and E, the Ward 7 Education Council. We've heard previously through comment and submissions from 7C and 7D. I very much appreciate how you just articulated process and plans. And I'd just like to give you the opportunity to address some of the specific concerns that you've heard, and what you're doing, and what you have done, what you're doing, and what you plan to do to address some of those specific neighborhood concerns.
So I think that we have continued and will continue to try to reach out specifically within 7D02 or 7E02, because that's where the school resides. And you all have made clear, we have made clear, this happened fast. And we went to Rocket Ship and they said, we'll try to talk to you, Sean, and see if we can do something to support you. So that didn't leave us a lot of time to get a lot done. We were able to get on to present at 7D. We had been working to get that done for some time, and so we kept that. We had also been on the schedule to speak at 7E that exact same night, and had planned on presenting at one early and one late. The communication got mixed up, and so we ended up being on the schedule for both of them at the same time. So we got to the 7E meeting at a time that we thought we were going to present, and the agenda had already moved forward. And so we were not given the opportunity to present. I spoke specifically to 2 members of that group, including Linda Green that evening, who told me, speak to the chair and get yourself rescheduled. And so we've continued to try through several emails and several individuals who have been working with us, who've been reaching out to say, hey, how can we make some kind of communication happen where you get an opportunity to ask the questions? The truth is that the time it hasn't been enough time for that community to come together in a way that they would like to hear from us. And so we have had to push some of that back to September. When those groups come back together. I do know that some of the civic associations actually do meet over summer, and all of them have a request from me right now to come even during summer to speak to them. But I am trying to figure out a way to respectfully allow them to tell me how to address them.
Full appreciation for that. Moving that focused from process to particular concerns. Are there particular concerns, substantive concerns, that have come out of the conversations that you've had so far that have caused you to rethink particular plans or act accordingly?
What I got from public comment and from also meetings where we actually attended and heard from the community, it is important to say a few things. Community members have been very supportive of the program. They believe that this does address a specific need. There has been a regular call for middle school spaces, a regular call for something to be done different for boys. And so in that space, people have recognized that we perhaps fit, or we meet a specific need. That said, there has been concern that I have been aware of on a couple of fronts. One, there was a deep concern when we were at Cesar Chavez that we were going to put 4th graders in the building with 12th graders. And so there was quite a bit of discussion about that. That was an issue that resolved itself, quite obviously. There was also an issue about 4th grade itself, starting at an atypical entry point. And while people agreed with the data around why we thought that should happen, they also were concerned about the reality that we would be pulling from some area schools that have a program that is, that runs from pre-K up to 5th grade or pre-K to 6th. And so there was a concern that we would be taking students out of a program before the continuum of that program closed. And then the third concern, which I think you have heard here tonight, is just process with regards to engaging the community. That there are members of the community who wanted to speak with us, who wanted to know what the program was about, who wanted to have an opportunity to ask us questions, who we did not reach. Again, we did spend most of our time engaging parents with families and trying to be there. We literally put together a list of some 56 businesses, 28 stores, 25 nail salons and hair shops, 17 media outlets, the 16 rec centers, the ANCs, the 2 council members and we really started to work a plan to communicate with all of those individuals. But we did focus our attention on those rec centers, on those places that would serve as channels. Because starting at 4th grade, you don't have a natural channel. Quite obviously, the 2 schools that end at 3rd grade were in that channel pool as well. And so we really focused a lot of, our forums, a lot of the work that we were doing, a lot of the visits around that portion of the community, and only did ANCs and some of the other community meetings when we could actually communicate and get on those schedules. We were late to the game with some of them, and we just have to accept responsibility for that.
These are education questions, and I've had enthusiasm for your educational approach for many years and in many roles, and was a major reason I was so supportive of your plan. But I hope that here you might speak to any questions, concerns, things that you've heard from the community that are not strictly educational per se, community questions, neighborhood questions, and how your process has been for how you've reacted to those, and what impact that's had on your process.
So the only question at one of the ANCs, one of the commissioners asked us about curriculum. They asked us about the curriculum that we were using. And we stated the curriculum that we were using, and that person expressed some concern about that curriculum. There was a question about whether or not we could get on an executive committee so that we could have a fuller set of questions about the curriculum. Those really have been the programmatic questions that we've had. The programmatic questions have been that one on curriculum, where someone felt like the curriculum that we were using was more appropriate for an after-school program and not appropriate for a school. We are using forms of curriculum that are standard, and we're upgrading them, in line with the pedagogy and the research that we've put together around how boys engage in class. And so that's been the only programmatic, other than fourth grade, starting at fourth grade. We have not, we feel like the reason that we are starting at fourth grade is critically important, and we don't intend to move that. We have continued to hear that there are some members of the community who are concerned with that. And that has not been something that we've been willing to move on. I don't know if there are other concerns specifically that have been brought to your attention. Please let me know what they are, because I don't want to speak around them. I want to speak directly to what the issue is.
I have a question. Yes, Sean?
Yes.
First of all, Sean, thank you for acknowledging the legitimate concerns of community members. I'm not sure that always happens, and I just thank you for setting a good example there. Do you know whether or not the ANC reps in the various community groups are aware of the fact that your school will only be in that facility for a year?
So we certainly have made it clear that even when we were going to Cesar Chavez, that was a 1 year deal. And we've been very clear from the beginning that both sides have been very clear that the incubation with Rocket Ship is also 1 year. And so I haven't said to anyone in particular in any one of these groups that we're going to be there for a year. We did say that at one meeting where people were pushing pretty hard on fourth graders being in the building with 12th graders. We did say, please understand that that will be for 1 year, and then we will be moving on to find a location where we could grow from there. But that's it. That's it. And only 60 students, that we were starting with a group of, we're doing a standard matriculation, so we're starting with 60 students. We have contracted the program down from 85 to fit comfortably into the space that Rocket Ship is going to be able to provide. Thank you.
I just asked a question because I didn't hear any of the folks who came for public comment mention that, and I wasn't sure if that was because they were unaware of it, but it does seem like that might go some way towards addressing their concerns.
I wanted to hear a little bit more about, I know this has been a really fast process, but what conversations you've had with Rocket Ship just about the actual process of co-locating, like how doors are going to work, how staff is going to work. You have an all-boys model with a co-ed model.
Yeah.
How are you going to make sure that your model is preserved? Just would love to hear that. And I just want to be clear, do you have an option to go to more than 1 year if you need to, or is that this lease that you have will end after a year and you have to get out?
our literal agreement that we are signing with the Public Charter School Board stipulates that we will be in Rocketship for 1 year.
Okay.
The lease agreement that is being built with Rocketship stipulates that we will be there for 1 year.
Okay.
Our board is already working on year 2 options.
Okay.
And so we know that this is going to be, we were extremely thankful to Rocketship because we really did want to stay in Ward 7. We didn't want to move the program out of the ward and end up, getting a lot of kids from the ward. That there were options in Ward 5. But if we'd gone to Ward 5, we'd get a lot of families from Ward 5, and then when we moved back back east of the river, we know we would lose those families. And so we wanted to stay as close to where we intend to eventually be. And so that was the option that we took, even though we know it is for 1 year. And we fully intended to use the year to really do some grounded work on where should this program be permanently. You asked a question before that, though. There was a
Yeah, I just would love to hear about the conversations or processes you've already started talking about with co-location, because it seems really important in this particular case around the co-ed versus single sex.
It's important to say that we actually started having reconciliation conversations with Rocketship before their board actually voted that they would even begin to write the lease, because we wanted to make sure, I wanted them to feel comfortable, and we wanted to feel comfortable that our programs were aligned enough so that we wouldn't get in each other's way. And not just that we wouldn't get in each other's way, it's important to say I fully intended to partner with Cesar Chavez when we were going to be there around programming. We fully intend to partner with Rocketship while we are there. And so it's an easier alignment because they would be going to 5th grade anyway, and 60 4th grade boys in that building, in literally a dedicated space in the building with a wall that we're putting up as a barrier really allows us to exist as its own, as a separate entity. And so we are very satisfied, their program and our program, very satisfied that, one, our programs are aligned. The way that we are training teachers, and working with parents, there are some similarities, and so we can partner in that. We've also agreed that there are lots of things that we are trying to figure out in the space of personalized learning and how we make personalized learning work better for Black and brown males than it has worked across the country. They're doing really good work in that space, and we can learn from them. At the same time, there's all kinds of pedagogy. We spent an enormous amount of time in our application and in putting this program together thinking about pedagogy, methodology, instructional methodology, in terms of how you keep boys engaged that we can share with Rocketship so that they are able to increase engagement for the Black and brown boys who are in their building. So in that way, there are all kinds of alignments. And we have had several very clear and open conversations about the schedule, about the building and how the building will be used, about the time that they come, the time that we come, how we reduce impact to the community, how we go out and together engage this community in a way that, again, allows both of us to work on how we get the community to support both of these programs. And so I feel very good that the communication that we have had with each other, even in this very short period of time, has been really, really good. It's been high quality communication where we've walked out with clear understandings about how we want these programs to move forward. There has not been, outside of little things like, do we get to hang a sign on this part of the gate or the other part of the gate, there has not been any, issues with kind of bringing those programs together.
I guess I'm trying to understand, it sounds great what you just said. Some schools co-locate and try as hard as they can not to see each other and not to interact. And I guess I'm not sure if I'm hearing that or if I'm hearing we are going to spend some time integrated into Rocketship.
No, we will run two very clean, clear programmatics, that are separate from each other. We will co-locate in the same building, and as a part of that co-location, we may partner on one activity or another. In particular, our thoughts around PD, our thoughts around, how we want to engage the trade or the share of information. But Statesmen will exist as Statesmen. It is you all have seen the application. That program is very much so laden with idea around how things should happen for these young men. And so we are literally making making sure that our arrangement doesn't take away too much from our ability to implement our program with fidelity, with as much fidelity as we possibly can in a shared space.
Sean, you testified earlier to the parent engagement and student engagement that you've done over the course of the last few years, and specifically over the last 9 months, that's yielded a cohort of families and their young men who have signed up for this new venture.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about your engagement with them as the facilities and the location have become more challenging and then have moved and now where we are today.
You know, that's a really important question. And the reason is that when a school has a co-location, especially we have a name change that's happening and a change in location that's happening all at the same time. And for some members of the community, they may look at that and say, well, they're in trouble, right? They're in trouble and we are concerned. These two things happened completely separate of each other, and for reasons that are in no way related. But they have come together in this way, and I think a change of location is difficult for parents. We fully intended that we would lose 20% of our families with this co-location, because some of the families literally chose the school in the way that families do, because it's near us. But the reality is that we have a program that is very unique, and that meets a very specific need. And so we contacted at that point, when the announcement was made, there were 41 families that were enrolled. We're now at 51. And we contacted we did voice-to-voice contact to every single one of those families. And we are still amazed. Like, we did not lose one family. Our families were clear. We are going with you wherever you go. We need this for these boys. And so we were inspired by that, and there were a couple of families who are literally coming together so that they can do shared riding to make sure that kids who were across the street from the school and whose parents don't have cars can still come to the school. And we were willing to build out some kind of a support to make sure that if we have to shuttle kids in the first year, that we will do so. But outside of one family that was literally coming from northwest to drive over to the school, and this has added another 10 minutes to their commute. She is still on the fence and is saying, look, if I can drop him off at Cesar Chavez and you all can shuttle him over to the school and then shuttle him back, I will pick him up. And so there is real commitment by the families, and most of the families were enormously happy with the fact that we were going to be in this brand new building, in this new space, in a different neighborhood. So it turned out not to be the concern that we thought it would be.
Thank you. Comments, questions, rest of the board? All right. Yeah. Darren, Steve, any other additional comments?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry, I was on mute there. First of all, Sean, I just wanted to restate what several board members have said regarding our appreciation for the level of focus you're bringing to the community concerns. I think that's very laudable, and we're hoping to see more of that from our current schools and future students as we move forward. But one thing I was wondering is, as you've gone through these changes and the name change and the location change and those sorts of challenges, has that in any way impacted your ability to staff up or make sure you're going to have fidelity to the model that you have intended to implement?
Another important question, and the answer is absolutely it has. This last month, my entire attention has been on facilities in that program. And if it were not for the fact that I have this awesome group of gentlemen who have been working with me to keep the programmatic work afloat, this would be difficult. Changing a building has changed how we will accentuate this program. It just has. It is not the space that we originally planned on. We do not have as much space as we originally wanted to. There is no outsides. There are several programmatic pieces that have had to be shifted as a result of the fact that we have had to change location. And the amount of time and attention that I've had to spend on this has taken away from staffing. It's taken away from, we've also had to contract the program. And so in doing that, we've reduced the number of students and therefore the amount on a per pupil, and therefore the number of staff has had to go down. And so, yes, there have been impacts. What I did from the beginning was work with my team to say, in order for this to be the highest performing cohort of African American males in the city in year one, what must we have in place? Those things cannot move. And so we have been able to keep a pretty consistent ratio, adult to student ratio. We have been able to keep some of the high-end programmatic pieces that we think shouldn't be special pieces. They should be just what we do because of the impact that they have on kids. We have been able to keep everything that we think is critically important to the program while at the same time shrinking the size and the amount of anything that we're going to do. And so, yes, this has had an impact on the program and how the program will be implemented. And it is a set of shifts that we're willing to accept to make sure that we can start this work for the families who we recruited and they not lose this.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
That brings our public hearing portion of the meeting to a close. We're going to take a 5-minute break before beginning the public meeting, so we'll regroup here in 5 minutes. All right, we're gonna start the meeting now. All right.
So now I'm worried about the security guards going to sleep with the I'm sure you will.
Okay, Stephen, Darren, we're going to begin the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. So now we're going to the meeting portion of our meeting this evening. We're going to start by approving this evening's agenda. And can I get a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor of the motion on the table to approve the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And I have an aye from Ricardo Ganjam on her proxy. Any nays? All right, all in favor, let's move forward. All right, first, Hannah, if you can join us, and with both, let's start with Digital Pioneers, and then we'll bring up Family Place, or all together? All together, all right.
All together.
We may just have enough chairs.
Haley, if you want to introduce yourself first.
Good evening. Thanks. I'm Haley Wiggins, Executive Director of the Family Place Public Charter School. Nice to see everyone again.
Hi, and I'm Michelle Ashton, CEO and Principal of Digital Pioneers Academy.
And hello again. I think we said we'd start off with Digital Pioneers, correct? Okay. Tonight, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board vote to fully approve the 15-year charter agreement of Digital Pioneers Academy Public Charter School. On May 22nd, 2017, the board conditionally approved DPA PCS to operate a computer science-focused middle school for grades 6 to 8. This approval was contingent upon the school satisfying all of the board's conditions, one of which is to secure a facility. DPA PCS intends to locate in the East Washington Heights Baptist Church at 2220 Branch Avenue Southeast in Ward 7, and the board held a public hearing on the matter on May 21st. If the board votes to approve the charter agreement, which includes the school's location, and it is signed by both parties, DPA PCS will have met all conditions.
Michelle, any thoughts, any changes since you were here 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago?
Lots of updates. Should I share?
If they're quick.
Okay.
Just be punchy. I know.
Sure. I I have to say something because I've obviously been here since 6:30, and I have sat through the last almost 2 hours. So if it's okay, I'd like to share what's on my mind, even though this might jeopardize my charter approval. But I've been doing this work a really long time. And I must say, I just feel a certain way about the conversation that happened over the last 2 hours. But at DPA, we believe that anything is possible, but we must face the brutal facts while never lowering the bar. And what I heard tonight was a lot of frustration, a lot of somewhat hope and optimism. And I have known Sean Hardnett for 15 years. I know the CEO of Rocket Ship for 10 years. And as you all know, my husband is a sixth-generation Washingtonian and literally grew up at 4021 Alabama Avenue, probably threw rocks into some of the ANC members' house as a child. And so I feel deeply concerned, but also, because I'm optimistic, feel like that we have a one-year site. So we're going to be here a year from now with maybe some of the same issues, some of the same concerns. And what I just really hope that you all as a board, us as charter leaders, can really leave our non-negotiables at the door and actually come together to find our common strip of unity. Because I feel like there are good people with good intentions who want to do good things, but that we keep coming to the table with our non-negotiables and our best practices and, you know, our sense of justice and civil rights, and really not, at the end of the day, trying to move the work forward on behalf of the students and families that we are trying to serve. And I can say this because I don't yet have a school open, but I am continuing to be optimistic and positive about the possibilities. And I just had to share that. So anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So since we last came together, DPA has been hard at work. When we came together in May, I think it was, we had 88 students fully enrolled. Today, we are at 123 students fully enrolled, with an additional 12 that are matched to us. Our renovations are on track to be ready July 15th. You all asked us a question about staff hiring. We do have 10 staff that are fully hired, with another 5 pending offers, another 8 finalists. I just want to reiterate on the staff hiring that since we last met, I have done 75 interviews alone, whether in person or over the phone. And there's no limited interest in terms of being a part of the founding team of DPA. But we made real promises to you all, a commitment to open a college prep school, commitment to serving all students, and all meaning all. And so we're really looking for those amazing educators who believe in the sense of possibilities for our students, who are going to work hard and grow as we're asking our students to grow. And so while we're not quite where we want to be in terms of staff hiring, I'm optimistic but also realistic that we will find the staff that will allow us to open and open well, so that we will be a consistently ranked Tier 1 DC public charter school. And the last thing I will say is just our partnership with the East Washington Heights Baptist Church has been amazing. They have welcomed us with open arms. They've been our advocates, our supporters. They've challenged us to really think how we could work in collaboration with the community. And so I'll just end by saying I'm incredibly grateful for that partnership, and we really do look forward to being a part of Ward 7, serving as many students east of the Anacostia River in our school for 15 years. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments?
Hello.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
You too.
Quick question about the wards where your students are from. Can you give us a breakdown of the number of students from the ward that you are physically located and the other wards where students are?
Yes, my team just sent this to me, so we're ready. So we have 50 of our innovators are from Ward 7, so about 41%. 60 of our innovators are from Ward 8, about 49%, and the other 13 of our innovators are from other, so that's about 10%. And interesting enough, we have 56 boys and 67 girls.
Thank you.
have a quick question. So your charter, you're approved for 120 students. So I assume you're enrolling more than 120 because you're expecting some fall off?
Correct. We heard to anticipate anywhere from just 10 to 15% between the summer and the start of the school year, whether it's from families moving out of town, moving across the city, or getting into other schools that they're waitlisted on.
All right. If there are no other questions, will we entertain a motion?
The people on the phone don't have any questions?
I move to fully approve the.
Yes, making sure.
Is there a question?
No questions. No questions.
Okay. I move to fully approve the charter of Digital Pioneers Academy Public Charter School and approve the DC PCSB board chair to sign the charter agreement on the board's behalf.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Steve and Darren, both ayes, and an aye from Ricardo Ganjum as well. Any nays? Nope. So all in favor? The long journey has
Now the work begins.
come to an end or a beginning.
Yes,
Congratulations.
beginning. Thank you. Stay. Do you want me to sign right now?
Okay, part two.
Family Place.
Tonight, DC PCSB staff recommends that the board vote to fully approve the 15-year charter agreement of the Family Place Public Charter School. On May 22, 2017, the board conditionally approved the Family Place Public Charter School to operate an adult public charter school for English learners. This approval was contingent upon the school satisfying all the board's conditions, one of which is to secure a facility. The Family Place intends to co-locate with the Family Place nonprofit at 3309 16th Street Northwest in Ward 1, and the board held a public hearing on the matter on May 21st. If the board votes to approve the charter agreement, which includes the school's location, and it is signed by both parties, the Family Place will have met all conditions.
Remarks, updates?
We just had our graduation from our regular family, the Family Place program last week, and we had, I believe, 106 graduates, and it was just really good vibes. Our students are really excited to, be a part of this new charter school. I had quite a few students, in the past we weren't able to offer some of the more advanced levels, and so it was great to see some of our past participants come up and be excited and ask me, hey, does this mean I can come back? And I'm like, absolutely, yes, we want you to come back. So we're just excited to get started. We have some new staff on board. We have our SIS up and working, so we're able to get students enrolled and learning how all of that works, and we're just really excited to get started.
Great. I'll start with those board members on the phone. Any questions or comments?
Nope. No questions.
No questions. Okay. Anyone here? All right. Can I get a motion then?
Go ahead.
Or two? Done.
I move to fully approve the charter of the Family Place Public Charter School and approve the DC PCSB board chair to sign the charter agreement on the board's behalf.
Second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. And Ricardo Ganjum is a vote to approve as well. Any nays? No? Then it's unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. We've now made the official signing. It's a moment.
It's like,
Is it being tweeted?
I'm getting ready to tweet.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll have who's going to address the next item? Are they on deck? Terry. DC Scholars or Naomi? Oh, sorry.
Fisher.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, guys. Thank you. We're looking forward to visiting both. Thanks, Rashida.
Hey, hello again. The members of DC Scholars Public Charter School were here earlier in the evening. They had to leave, but I'm here to share about their progress. So our staff requests that you vote to lift the truancy notice of concern, which was issued to DC Scholars Public Charter School on April 23rd. Per our truancy policy, the school has met all 3 criteria required to have the notice lifted. They increased the in-seat attendance rate for the whole school from 83% to 91%. They improved attendance of 64% of the students originally identified as truant. And excluding the students initially counted as truant in the baseline period, the school maintained a chronic truancy rate of 23%, which is lower than the threshold of 30%.
Excellent. So just to capture it correctly, we had some very specific metrics and milestones that we asked them to meet.
Yes.
Since the last meeting.
Yes.
And staff has found that they've met them and are recommending that we lift the notice of concern.
Correct.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
83 to 91% in the review period, and I just wasn't clear what the review period was.
Sure. So from the time that we first notified them that they were receiving the notice, from the beginning of the school year to that period was the baseline period, and then from the time period after that until, I don't have the exact date, but about 2 weeks ago. So it's about a 2-month period is the review period. Now, the school had shared with us offline that they had some data submission issues that was the reason of that low 83% number in the first place. Now, that's their ISA, so that doesn't take away from the fact that they truly did improve their truancy rates, their truancy numbers in that 2-month period. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Any other concerns or questions for Rashida? All right. If not, can we get a motion?
I move to lift the truancy notice of concern for DC Scholars Public Charter School, which was given to the school on April 23rd, 2018.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Darren? That's Steve, Darren?
Yep. Aye.
That was a tie.
Great, thank you. And a vote to approve the lift from Ricardo Ganjum as well. Any nays? No. So all in favor? Motion passes.
Great.
Thank you, Rashida. Terry, we have 3 charter renewal agreements, DC Prep, Eagle Academy, and Latin American Montessori Bilingual.
Ernest Yombo, Assistant Principal at LAM.
Sarah Ranth, I'm the Assistant Principal at LAM PCS Missouri Campus.
Oh, at the same time? Okay. Joe Smith, Eagle Academy.
Raymond Whedon, DC Prep.
DC PCSB staff recommends that the board approve the 15-year charter renewal agreements for DC Preparatory Academy Public Charter School, Eagle Academy Public Charter School, and Lamb Public Charter School, and approve PCSB Board Chair Rick Cruz to sign the renewed agreements on the board's behalf. Each school was previously approved for charter renewal in school year 2017-18, and the renewed agreements will take effect on July 1 of this year.
Does DC Prep any comments or remarks? Anything to add?
Just that we're excited for another 15 years.
He's excited for another 15 years. Questions from the board, comments?
Hi, this is Steve. I just have a comment. I am going to vote to approve this 15-year charter renewal. With that being said, I do hope DC Prep will reconsider the policy that I believe is current, not to backfill in grades 6 through 8. The reason I'm saying this is because if we were in a situation where every school had such a policy, we would have students in the city that wouldn't have a middle school to attend. And I just sort of philosophically believe that when you sign up to be a public school, there are some built-in inconveniences, and sometimes that means taking kids at irregular times, particularly in a city that has a lot of low-income students, as we have here in DC. So I just wanted to state that for the record.
Thank you, Steve. All right. Can I get a motion?
I move to approve the charter renewal agreement of DC Prep PCS and approve the DC Public Charter School Board Chair to sign the charter renewal agreement on the board's behalf.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. And an aye from Ricardo Ganjam as well in her proxy vote. Any nays? No. The motion passes. Congratulations. All right. No official signing at this stage. Terry.
Hi.
Eagle? Eagle? Yeah. Do you want?
She introduced them all.
Oh, we're all, okay, sorry. All right. Any questions, any comments? No? Okay, we're gonna. From the board, any questions or comments for Eagle? All right, then can we get a motion?
I move to approve the charter renewal agreement of Eagle Academy Public Charter School and approve the DC PCSB Board Chair to sign the charter renewal agreement on the board's behalf.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. And an aye from Ricardo Ganjam as well. Any nays? No. Motion passes. Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you. Now I'll say something. Thank you.
All right. Lamb. Any questions from the board? All right. I think we asked a lot of questions when we approved the initial renewal. So if we get a motion, we can go from there.
I move to approve the charter renewal agreement of Latin American Montessori Bilingual PCS and approve the DC PCSB Board Chair to sign the charter renewal agreement on the board's behalf.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. Aye. And an aye from Ricardo Ganjam on her proxy. Any nays? No. All right. Approved unanimously as well. Congratulations to all three. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Naomi.
Hello. Hi. I'm Naomi Rubin DeVoe, the Deputy Director here at the Public Charter School Board, and I'm asking you to release for public comment the 1819 PMF Technical Guide, or Policy and Technical Guide, the sections for pre-K through 8, and the section for high school. We will have a public hearing in July, and you will vote on it in August, and this provides all the business rules that govern how we will hold schools accountable for next school year.
Not August. September.
September. You will vote in September. You'll be thinking in August. There are no major changes that we're proposing this year. In fact, the major changes that we are saying, no major changes, we are actually asking that you keep things constant in almost every area for pre-K 8 and for high school. The city has moved to a consortium, MGP, so that is the consortium of states that continue to use PARC, which includes Maryland and Delaware, our neighbors. And so instead of creating a growth score based only on DC residents or students, we're moving to the state consortium, MGP, which would include all students who take PARC, which we think will be actually a strong and robust growth measure that OSSI's running for us. We're also asking that that we change the way we currently use Gateway. Gateway is a measure within the PMF for pre-K through 8, where reading is counted twice in 3rd grade, and math is counted twice in 8th grade. We only take students that are continuing students who have been there at least a year for the 3rd grade or 8th grade. What was happening is if a school had only 1 grade and not 3rd and 8th, we were double weighting the grade that it had. And this caused a bit of imbalance, or perceived it could cause imbalance. We actually don't see one, but we wanted to, the schools asked, and we agreed that we should not double weight. And when in doing that, we've distributed the points differently, so some of our schools will no longer be out of 100 points, but instead will be out of a smaller percentage. And I'd say those are the biggest changes. They're all listed out in the proposal, and we will talk about them much more in July at the public hearing.
Great. Can you say a little bit more about how you've engaged the schools?
Sure. As with all of our decisions, we meet with the schools regularly to discuss. For the pre-K 8 in particular, because we were looking, if you remember in December we asked you, or January we asked you to roll back some of the decisions we made, and in doing that we then put together a task force of data managers, and so we had a pretty robust group of data people from many different schools, and K-12, Josh Boots, and we really looked together at different ways of making the PMF stronger and ensure that there was no or very slight correlation between population and performance, so that students in schools across the city could fairly all hit Tier 1. And this group spent hours and hours. I'm very, very thankful to them. And at the end of the day, we came up with these proposals that are here. They had a lot of other really great proposals that are not here, and I want to honor that, but this is the ones that we think give validity and reliability to our PMF and move us forward in a strong way.
So we'll welcome public comment across this next period and at the July meeting, but we don't anticipate finding ourselves in the position we were last year with having to...
No. I mean, we will probably get more public comment from the schools if that were unable or didn't agree with the majority of schools where we landed, but we feel that these come from and with a lot of participation of our schools.
Thank you. Board
Any
comments, questions? Don?
I just have one question that is going to be annoying, but it's been a while since I read through all this and a lot of conversations. The agenda item and the motion in front of us includes the pre-K to 8 high school and alternative accountability sections, and I'm not sure I recall what is pertinent to the alternative accountability sections.
So there were actually no changes. Thank you for the question. The alternative accountability framework is the framework which governs how we hold accountable the schools and evaluate the schools that are not traditional. So these are our schools that serve alternative populations defined by very high levels of students with disabilities, like St. Coletta falls into this group, or schools that serve, that have a mission to serve alternative students, like Kingsman would fall into this group, Maya Angelou's high school. And there is no change, but we do issue the guidance so that they know exactly how they're being held accountable. Monument would be another school, but there have been no changes.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah, thanks.
If there are no other questions, then can I get a motion that, no, we're just opening this for public comment, so motion to
Yes.
open?
I move to open for public comment the 2018-19 PMF Policy and Technical Guide, pre-K to 8, high school, and alternative accountability sections.
A second.
Great. A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 2 ayes on the phone and an aye from Ricardo Ganjam. The ayes have it.
Great.
Look forward to having this discussion further in July.
Yes. And I will, just on the record, we will be asking you to release for public comment the section that is not being released, right? The adult education PMF on Friday when we have another meeting.
Great.
Okay.
Next, I assume you're going to take on the next
I am
item as
going to
well.
take on the next item as well. This is a unusual request that's coming from the task force and us. Our high school PMF has been without growth for the past couple of years because our state was unable to create a valid growth measure, given the small numbers of students who were going from 8th to 10th grade that they could track. However, with having this part of this consortium that we talked about that has Maryland and Delaware, we are able to get a larger number of students, and OSSI is very, very hopeful that they are going to have a valid growth measure for this school year, so for the 17-18 school year, that they're going to include in their pilot, and that we would be able to have here. And so what we've asked, because we haven't seen any data on this, the schools don't know what this will look like, we don't know what this will look like, what we discussed with the task force is that it is an optional measure that they can include in their PMF score for this school year. It'll be displayed for every school regardless, but if they don't want to include it, they don't have to include it for this year because it's so late in the school year. It's actually after the school year is over. But there are some schools that we think might do much better on the PMF having growth included again. So we're excited.
So from a process perspective, they'll be allowed to opt in after they see?
Yes, so this is an opt-in after they see their scores. Then they will tell us whether they want this to be included on the points or whether they want it just displayed on their PMF, which we agreed in task force was the most reasonable way to do it, given that we, again, have never seen these data.
And then after this first year,
So after this year, so next year, it'll be part of the framework. What we've released for public comment includes these business rules already in place. So they will be held accountable to the growth measure as with the consortium, or using the consortium data.
Good. Do you have some questions on the phone?
Naomi?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Darren. Are there any scenarios you can envision once we see the data and the schools see the data where we might want to back away from using it officially after next school year?
No, not to the best of my knowledge at this point. But I haven't seen it, so we are assuming that it's going to norm at 50 and that our schools are going to perform in a reasonable manner. But we haven't seen it. So I guess if it were to show that it was very erratic and it didn't look or didn't seem to reflect reality, then we would want to consider how this works, or if the schools did not have an ability to appeal their scores if they didn't think they looked right.
So will that be subject to a future vote to formalize it for the PMF?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm just wondering, will we as a board be voting again in a year's time or so to make it an official part of the performance framework?
So you will be voting to make it an official part of the 18-19 framework in September because it's part of those technical guide business rules At that point, we will have seen the data, so for this school year, I hope. So we'll be able to make an informed decision, I hope. For this school year, it's display only, so your vote is just to give the schools the option.
So in summary,
Okay,
we'll have
thank you.
another opportunity.
You'll have
to look
another
at.
opportunity in September, and we would certainly, if we don't think the data is valid, would want to not vote on it in September. We'd amend our proposal for you. Yeah.
Yeah, so I appreciate the teams continually working on this, because it has been a conversation that I know has been a part of many conversations, and probably some of my colleagues on the board have joined for some of those conversations, in particular with our high school leaders. So very eager to see how this unfurls.
Me too. Exciting.
Excellent. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'll take a motion on the high school update.
I move to approve the 2017-18 PMF Policy and Technical Guide High School Update.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
2 ayes on the phone and an aye from Ricardo Ganjum. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Great. I'm staying.
You're staying.
Rashida's coming.
You're not going anywhere.
Nope.
Rashida, thanks for joining.
Right. Hello again. As I mentioned, I am Rashida Young, and with me is Naomi DeVoe. Staff recommends the board vote to approve the revised enrollment ceiling increase policy. Staff originally proposed changes to the current ECI policy to clarify and amend standards our board will consider when determining whether a school will be granted an enrollment increase. Revisions were also made to include indicators of quality beyond academic performance. We sought school leader and community feedback via the Charter Leaders Meeting, 3 school leader task force meetings, and a Parent Alumni Leadership Council meeting. Aside from feedback gathered at those meetings, we also received 7 public comments proposing suggestions and requesting clarity on several topics, including standards for discipline, subgroup performance, budgeted enrollment targets, re-enrollment, financials, performance management framework tiers, and school turnaround status. Given we received multiple public comments, we held 2 public hearings. At the last public hearing, there were requests made to lower the re-enrollment criteria. After careful consideration and a deeper dive of school re-enrollment data, staff chose to keep our recommendation as it stands at 85%. Holding schools to a standard of re-enrolling all but 15% of their population is important regardless of the student population. And high re-enrollment rates are indicative of higher parent-student satisfaction and positive school retention efforts. And we're happy to answer any questions you have.
I just wanted to start by thanking a number of folks. This has been a process, as you laid out, that's taken the better part of the last year, and well worth it, because both as a board and as a community, we engaged in a number of conversations, both about what schools we think, or what the qualities are of schools that we believe should be replicating, and bringing greater consistency and certainly transparency to this process. So thank you to the staff that has been with us that entire time, Rashida, Naomi, and many others, and for the continuous engagement of the larger community, in particular our school leaders. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Steve and Darren, who couldn't be here but are by phone, for joining me on the task force with our school leaders to have some very honest discussions about different aspects of it. And certainly we don't necessarily agree as a community on every aspect of it, but I do think we have a much stronger policy, a much clearer policy, and I think it will be a good guide for this next phase of growth for so many of our schools who want to grow. So thank you again, in particular staff, for all the work on this.
Sure.
This is Darren. Just to echo Rick's comments, This has literally been a blood, sweat, and tears effort of the better part of a year, as Rick said, and I just want to echo the thanks, particularly to Rashida and Naomi, who have shepherded this to a place where I think we're going to be, approving schools that are better suited to do well by our students. So I'm very grateful for that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of this policy. So thanks to staff.
I have a...
This is Steve.
Yep.
I wrote a couple of paragraphs that I'd like to read into the record, if that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. We have a reputation at the PCSB for being one of the best charter authorizers in the country. Part of the reason we have this reputation is because we set high standards for our schools and we hold them accountable. With this in mind, I think it should be difficult to open a new school insofar that the schools would have to prove itself to be excellent in order to make a compelling case to serve more students. With this in mind, I don't think our proposed policy is nearly ambitious enough. I will point specifically to a policy that I think sets a particularly low bar. A school that has tripled the average suspension rate for the sector, in a sector that has high suspension rate vis-a-vis the rest of the country, will be eligible to serve more students. There is a significant body of research attesting to the deleterious social and academic effects that out-of-school suspensions have on students. Furthermore, there is evidence showing that the students we tend to serve in DC, low-income students, African-American students, students with IEPs, are much more likely to be suspended. Lastly, the issue of high suspension rate and disproportionate suspension has become a political issue in the city, so much so that the city council just passed legislation intended to curb the overuse of suspensions. So I just can't vote for a policy that would reward a school with triple the city average suspension rate with more students. I think that falls well short of the high bar we should set.
Great. Thank you, Steve. I have really appreciated your input, and I think the staff has as well, across this entire process, and appreciate your concerns, and I appreciate your lack of support because of those concerns. So thank you, and I think this is a conversation we will continue to engage in, both to establish that and keep that bar high for all of our students. So thank you again, Steve.
I just want to thank Steve, Darren, and Rick for their hard work on this, as well as our staff. I would say that I am very happy that for the first time we have some features including discipline in our enrollment ceiling increase policy, and I think that is a step in the right direction, not just discipline, but also subgroup performance and other features that we know are really important to thinking about with growth. I think we have kept a very high bar here, and I'm excited to see the schools that reach that bar.
Don?
Yeah, first of all, I want to share my appreciation for colleagues, particularly Darren and Steve and Rick, for their work, the work of our team, and the work of our task force members and the school leaders who took this so seriously and usefully from the beginning. I'm going to support this proposal and its measures. I do, though, want to discuss, or at least bring up concerns I have with regard to one particular measure, which is that we heard during the process a suggestion that the re-enrollment rate be reduced to 80% from 85%, and that's kind of what I just wanted to speak to, at least to put my concerns on record, and if others want to take it up, I look forward to their thoughts as well. Number one is that we have seen research and evidence from our schools indicating that schools with higher at-risk populations and greater at-risk populations both have more challenges with re-enrollment rates. In that spirit, it's always been a guiding principle of this board and my participation in this board that we never provide schools with disincentives from serving the students who need them most, and I take that seriously here. And then finally, on this point, I think we have some particularly, particularly relating to high schools, we have high schools with some amazing, remarkable facilities. But we have a real disparity in the quality of facilities that our schools have access to. And when you talk to parents about why they attrit, why they leave schools, sometimes whether it's a matter of location, or sometimes it's a matter of a basketball court or a football field, or some of the facilities that our schools, some of our excellent schools are operating in, don't have parity in terms of the opportunities for use of a football field that other high schools in the city have. So for these reasons, I am not proposing lowering the bar on increases, but I want to encourage maximum discretion for this board, as I've seen it applied uniformly throughout the years, that I would, while I am going to support the proposal, I'd like to give consideration to taking the community at its suggestion of lowering that measure from 85 to 80% of a re-enrollment retention rate. And I'd love to open that up for discussion if any colleagues have thoughts.
I have a thought, Don. I struggled with that one, particularly when really excellent charters such as Eagle Academy made compelling cases for that. When I thought it through and talked to Darren and Rick and Naomi about this, the conclusion I came to was that if you are making the case to open another school, which is not a requirement, it's not a requirement to have an additional campus, then some of these real conundrums that a school faces when they've decided to serve a highly at-risk population, part of the case you make to open another school is that you're able to move the dial on some of these issues. We don't lower our standard for park scores, for example, because a school has a high at-risk population. So I hear everything you said. I hear everything you say, Don, and don't disagree with the sentiment behind what you're saying. I just think, again, for an additional campus, you have to be able to move the dial on some of these seemingly intractable issues.
I would just add that I think one really, exciting feature of this policy is the flexibility that it gives the board to hear from a school when the school does not misses no more than 2 of the other indicators. I think that's going to be a really informative process for the board to hear a school make that case, and I think this is the exact situation where a school would make a case that its re-enrollment is not actually reflective of school quality, but instead these external factors that it cannot control. And I think the board, taking that information, will make decisions that reflect that type of flexibility that you're looking for.
I think that's a segue to a question that I was going to ask, which is, we've been talking about this policy, the many indicators, there were many different versions of it that we've now settled on. The process and the practice from here for our school leaders and for those who haven't spent as much time as we have in terms of how this will actually go into practice, should we choose to vote in favor of it this evening.
Sure. So it's our plan to run a data analysis once all the data is available for the previous school year. If that data is not available, we would use the data from the more previous school year. So as you know, many of our data are not available until late summer or even fall for some of the metrics. And And when that is available, if a school were to apply at that time, we would use the previous year's data. We do plan on sharing this with schools proactively so they know where they stand prior to even submitting an application for the enrollment ceiling increase. And schools can have dialogue with staff prior to submitting the application, just as they do now, to get a sense of whether they would be able to meet those criteria, and whether they want to proceed with the application, take their chances even if they have missed one or two or more of those criteria.
And if I can just add, so if they've missed one or two, actually if they miss more, they are ineligible to apply. But if they miss one or two, then they would be able to provide us with information about why they missed it. And we would also access other information that might provide more, we would look at trends over time. So let's say they missed something by just a little bit this previous year, and then we'll look back the last 3 years. And if we see that the trend is going the right direction, we would certainly want to share that with the board and with the school. And there would be in our public hearing a real deep look at all of the factors that contribute to a school missing the indicator. And at that point, the board would be able to make a really informed decision about whether the school is ready to expand or whether the school is not and needs to spend more time on whatever area that it's showing some weakness in. But we think that it provides a very targeted conversation about the areas that are the weakest for the school. We expect most schools, at least in our previous runs of this, miss the subgroup indicator, which is the one that says you have to score above the city average for every subgroup that you serve, or have a MGP that's higher than that subgroup's MGP. And it's very hard, as we're seeing from our data, but it's also very, very important. And so that's a conversation where I imagine we'll have a lot of as schools are expanding to say, well, what are we doing around our English language learners or our students with disabilities or our males? And those are the type of conversations that I think you all want to be engaged in, and the schools really, we want them to be thinking about.
As our vice chair indicated earlier, what's exciting about this is not just the clarity, but also the discretion, in particular with respect to schools that miss no more than two. There is another element, though, which are some non-negotiables that we were clear on from the beginning, that schools be Tier 1 in the previous year, that there be a cogent case of that there's demand for the school. And the third piece, very pertinent to our conversations this evening, is that there be a plan or an analysis, a set of work done in engaging the community. Not that the community is necessarily unanimous in its agreement around the school's plans, but that there's a demonstrated plan in place and work that has been done. I'd love any reactions or comments that the two of you who've spent so much time with schools and having been at many meetings in understanding how those will play out. Any thoughts that you have about those three non-negotiables?
I just wanted to point out language that I appreciate regarding the community stakeholder engagement is that it not only requires school to have a plan, but also states that the school has responded to community stakeholders. So beyond any plan that the school might think is appropriate, if there has already been engagement or pushback from families, neighbors, ANC members, the expectation here is that the schools responded to each of those concerns. And so the board would be able to hear, based on the school's application, what they've done and make a determination whether that response has gone far enough.
So one of the other areas of feedback that we got on this last draft was around being Tier 1. And some of the schools wanted, if it was a single campus, thought, upper Tier 2 should also be considered. And we stayed firm that we think that the schools that we as staff would recommend for our board to consider be Tier 1. However, if it's a multi-campus school, then there is some flexibility that the majority of the campuses are Tier 1, but that there may be 1 or 2 campuses, depending on how many campuses the school serves, that are Tier 2. Again, not below 45%, so not a low Tier 2, but that we recognize that it fluctuates. Things happen, and we want to be somewhat flexible on that. We also decoupled in this policy used to have that you had to have a facility and a ceiling increase at the same time, and we decoupled that so that there could be energy on the internal community, which is your staff and your families, around growth plans, that as one set of community stakeholders that you really want to engage on your growth. And then the second is often, now where do we locate, and the external community on what it means to have an increased traffic pattern or a new facility. So we intentionally divided that, and those are 2 votes now. One is for the growth, separate, and the other would be for a location if they needed a location.
All right. There isn't any additional comment. Can we have a motion?
I move to approve the revisions to the enrollment ceiling increase ECI policy.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And I have an aye from Ricardo Ganjam. Any nays?
Nay.
We have 6 ayes, 1 nay. The motion passes. Thanks again for all of the work, and we'll look forward to seeing this in practice in the next 6 to 9 months. Thank you. All right. Naomi, you're up there for the duration.
I'm staying. So I'm going to read, I guess this is a discussion item. So this is a proposal. The staff requests to submit into the record the official charter relinquishment of Sustainable Futures Public Charter School, received June 15th, 2018, and effective at the end of the current school year. And you have the letter that the school submitted to Mr. Pearson.
Yeah. So I'll just say this is a sad one when a school in its first year realizes that it cannot, and its words should not, move into its second year. I'm very appreciative for their staff and their boards' hard work in these last few years, and in particular in these last few months and weeks, as the reasons for their ultimate decision became obvious. It's a tough one because for me, this is the first school that I voted to approve, which we're now seeing close. And I noted as well from our sort of public statement that we're going to do a little bit of thinking about the process generally, and that will be a conversation in September. But again, I know the team is not here tonight, but I wanted to thank their board for holding up the charter compact in one of the ways that, unfortunately, it does work out sometimes. So I don't know if any of my board members have any comments or thoughts.
I would just second on the record the hard work of the staff of the school in serving a very difficult to serve population and doing it with as much fidelity and grace as they could to the model, but also recognizing what was best for their students was to take this next move.
All right. So no vote needed there, but we've got a number of motions in the consent calendar. So consent calendar, we're going to read into record our administrative contracts. And then we have a couple of charter amendments, opening for public comment, or charter amendments for Children's Guild and Community College Prep PCS for additional facilities, vote to open for public comment our revised accreditation policy, and then a vote to approve a new policy, which is our mandatory school notifications policy. So unless there are discussion items on the part of the board, I'd like to ask for motions, seconds, and votes in each one.
I move to read into record the administrative contracts over $25,000.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent. And an aye from Ricardo Ganjum as well.
I move to approve the charter amendment, I'm sorry, did I?
No.
Okay. I move to approve the charter amendment request of the Children's Guild PCS and Community College Prep PCS and approve the DCPS board chair to sign the amendments on the board's behalf.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
2 ayes on the phone and an aye from Ricardo Ganjum.
Keep going. I move to open the public comment, open for public comment, DCPCSB's revised accreditation policy.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And,
Darren, aye. And an aye from Ricardo Ganjum.
and finally, I move to approve DCPCSB's mandatory school notifications policy.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Steve?
Yep. Oh, sorry. Aye. I was on
Excellent.
mute.
No. And aye from Ricardo Ganjum. All right, so that is the consent calendar. All those motions passed. Any new business at this point in the evening? Rarely any takers after 10:30. If there's no new business, open the floor for public comment one last time. Again, no one jumping to that. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the June 25th, 2018 board meeting.
Second?
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.